Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this February 28th, 2013 Sherborn Board of Selectmen's meeting. As usual, I will read the agenda. We'll entertain any amendments to that agenda up here, then proceed to approve it and move forward. So, 6:05, we'll entertain a public comment. At 6:20, we will consider the appointment of Officer Ben Stickney from full-time special officer to full-time police officer. 6:30 p.m., the town accountant is on stage. Update with the selectmen with some reports for Selectman Caruso particularly. 7 o'clock, we'll, at the request of the town treasurer, to vote to accept a bid for bond refunding. That was the good news. We will consider, discuss the approval of warrants 34 and 35. At 7:15, we will begin to review and finalize the warrant for the annual town meeting, and then entertain topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Aside from the correction at the 6:20 item from patrolman to police officer, I don't have any pending amendments for this agenda. Do either of you?
I don't.
Very good. Then all in favor of the agenda as it stands? Aye. All right, very good. 6:05, 1 minute early, in fact. I'm sorry, Pat? Oh, absolutely right. Why don't we take a moment here, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce the new face at the table.
Who is that
This
guy?
gentleman here is our new town administrator, David Williams, who is joining us. This is his first meeting here, so I think we make him welcome. We can't tell him how glad we are that he's here.
Thank
We're
you.
looking forward to working with you.
Me too.
Yeah, I told him we have a very long list for him, but he shouldn't try to get it all done all at once. And I hope that people will be kind and easy on him as he gets acclimated to the world here, because we want him here for the next 30 years, you know?
Sending him screaming out of the room on day 4
Yeah,
is
we don't
not
wanna
an
do that.
option. I expect us all to behave better than that.
His name again?
David Williams.
Williams
From last area of employment was in Framingham, but I can let him introduce himself as well.
Well, originally from Bangor, Maine, most recently from Framingham. And I'm very glad to be here, so thanks a lot.
Glad to have you.
As are we.
Indeed, and could not describe.
Well, since the two of you have welcomed him, let me also add my voice to welcoming you. We've been a while without a town administrator, which makes it more of a daunting task to pick up a lot of the pieces. But it was a long process to find what we think is the very best. You are our hope and our banner going forward to lead this community into a better place.
Right?
You have our support in your efforts and anything that we can do to facilitate your taking charge and working with all the stakeholders in the community. Whatever we can do, count on us.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right, and given that there are other members of the public present, we are still in the midst of public comment, so if there is any. Very good, sir. I'm sorry, and Kitty, you were next.
I didn't come dressed to make a public statement, but as advisory liaison to the finance department in this building, I noticed on your agenda you're talking about the bond refunding. The finance team, I think, should be congratulated for their efforts in keeping our AAA bond rating.
Very good.
In addition to keeping our AAA bond rating, this bond is going to save us $207,000. So
Another sale, in fact.
it's a job nicely done.
Agreed. All right, Kitty.
Gentlemen, I believe today you received a new
bylaw for the Conservation Commission. And this, I want to applaud Grace Shepherd, #1, for bringing the citizens petition. It got the commission off the center, and they sat down and they worked with a small committee, and Jim Murphy should be applauded for the time he spent to coordinate all the different sections and what could be kept in, what could not be kept in, and then Barbara St. Andre worked from her point of view. And I believe you've got a very sound document, and then I encourage the Conservation Commission to go forward this coming year and work on their rules and regulations so that they're standardized to the bylaws and not taking different statements from different parts of the world. And there's one word that is out of place, but I'll address that if you talk about it later. Okay? And last night there was so much crossing out, and I can understand how it got, the wrong word got inserted, but it could change that section.
Well, good. Listen, I'm very glad that the different factions came together to make this thing work, because it simplifies everything and puts people on one page. I think that moves us all forward.
And I
Very
also should acknowledge that Mike Lesser
Yes.
stepped to the plate right after he realized that there was a citizen's petition, and he worked right along.
Well, I'd spoken to him a number of times over the past few weeks, and he was very receptive to the idea of making one thing out of the many, and I think that's to be commended for everyone involved in that process. It's not easy coming to an agreement over something like that, so I thank all of you. All right, is there any further public comment to be heard as we wind towards the 6:20 moment?
That's a little too early.
Yeah, very good.
You know, he may have family here and all of that.
Oh, I know, we're waiting. We are waiting. We could knock off,
We could do that.
why don't we knock the,
The chief's all you need?
Chief's all you need?
Chief's all you need,
Ready to go?
Chief's all of us need.
Chief/uncle sometimes.
Chiefs. Oh, this,
Where are you?
How we doing?
welcome, good to see you.
Nice to be back.
Yeah,
Nice
you've
to
been
see
away.
everyone.
Been
Nice to
away.
see familiar faces.
Indeed, most of the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Chief, why don't you bring us up to speed here and give us the inside track?
Sure. As you're aware, we're still in the process of meeting our obligation to properly train our personnel in the police department. And Ben is the first full-time special officer that we have sent off to the full-time academy to follow the rule of law in the Commonwealth. I kind of wanted to give Ben the opportunity to share his experience. He recently graduated from the Massachusetts State Police Academy. No, I will not allow him to wear the trooper hat in town at this discussion, but I want to give him the opportunity to kind of explain what he had to do, what his requirements were, his role, and his experience there. So,
Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely.
Well, first off, I'd just like to say thank you, and it's definitely nice to be back, see everyone. Some familiar face. I've bumped into a few people, but not everybody just yet. September 24th was the first day I started at the State Police Academy, New Braintree. They have their own compound, if you will, and that's where they do all their training for their troopers. They also run municipal classes and extended learning. So I spent 21 weeks there. It was an 800-hour curriculum, and we did just about everything. Most of the days, or all of the days, started at 6 a.m. with physical training, either running, CrossFit, some type of rigorous exercise, and then we'd head right into the classroom for just about 8 hours worth of classroom training. Most of the things were crash investigations. We did death investigations, active shooter training, firearms training. We did a week at an abandoned airstrip for emergency vehicle operations.
Oh, wow.
So we did a lot. We did a lot, and we covered a lot. It was a great opportunity that I was given, and I definitely tried to make the best of it. Definitely had some fun along the way. It was definitely not the easiest program. I had the opportunity to go through the Reserve Academy when I first got the job here in Sherborn, and it definitely doesn't compare at all to the training I received at the State Police Academy. So it was definitely a lifetime memory, and I'll definitely never forget it. And definitely thankful of the opportunity that I was given.
Well, we're glad to have you have it, and congratulations on
Thank you.
completing that kind of training. It boggles my mind
Yeah.
to think of what you must have gone through.
If you
But
notice, he's speaking a little loud because his ears are still they're ringing a little.
Yeah,
closer.
right, I'm sure. But welcome back. We're glad to have you
Thank
back.
Thank you very much.
And I wanted to add this because I think this is very important, and it's actually a credit to Ben's character and the person that he is. Throughout this 21 weeks, the candidates were required to stay at the State Police Academy, New Braintree. Ben's mom had some medical issues, and Ben was literally driving back and forth between New Braintree and where his mom lives to help out. So he was carrying some heavy burden with him.
Wow.
And I really
Sorry to hear that.
really wanted you to be aware that I was very proud of Ben. I'm extremely grateful to have him back. I know that Diane certainly is when she has computer
Yeah.
issues, and I just I'm really proud of Ben. That's what I'll say.
While we're singing his praises, let me acknowledge him for his role in helping the town with communications issues. The whole cell tower issue for this community has been a very long one and a very difficult one that's personally been on my list of things to do. And you stepped up and played a key part in the Communications Committee and the work that has now come to some fruition, because we have a tower that's going to be going up very soon, and we have an appropriation request for the annual town meeting to complete the part of the electronics that's going to make everything work. Thank you for
No
that.
problem at all. And I appreciate, the opportunity, and I was a little disappointed I wasn't able to see that all the way through. I had obviously had to go, but I think the committee did a great job, and Chief definitely stepped in and helped us out a lot. I'm excited to get back and see what those guys have been up to.
And because of the additional work he gave me, he's on a walking beat for the next year.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we're gonna have to hear the inside deal on this one.
He didn't fill his shoes while he was gone.
But once again, we're glad to have you back. Another incredibly well-qualified public safety officer here in Sherborn.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Well done, well
So
done.
we should move to appoint Ben Stickney a full-time patrol.
I'll second that.
Full-time police officer, is it?
Full-time
technically?
police officer.
Yep.
So, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Yes, indeed.
You are so appointed, sir.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, man. Well done, young brother, well done. Right, well, we're still ahead of schedule here.
Ruth's here.
Ruth is here, and the warrant is here, and
Well, I move to approve the balance of warrant 34 that was hanging out, if you wanted to do that at this stage.
yeah, I'd second that.
Yeah.
All in favor of approving that warrant? Aye.
And I would move to approve warrant 35, which is a small payroll only.
All right. Now, we are already annotated as having
Well, we
approved
footnoted.
with
We may want to re-sign.
footnote. I was just gonna say, I think we need to re-sign this. So, there's that, and that. And you've just moved
Move
to
that, moved
approve
35.
35, which is the straight small payroll one.
Yep.
So, I'll second that. All in favor of approving warrant number 35? Aye. That's you. That takes care of that. And although that's signed and countersigned, it's a little confusing, but there it is. So that brings us to, unless we're gonna wait for the 6:30 moment.
I think Ruth is here.
Ruth is here.
She's ready to rumble.
Do you need, do you have support troops that you require?
Probably not.
Okay, well, very,
She's here.
all right, very good. If you wanted to come up to the table and, we can, turn Selectman Caruso loose.
Well, we'll turn Ruth loose. And to the extent we need to probe a little bit, we'll gladly do that. How's that, Ruth?
Whatever makes you happy.
Well, you've provided us a financial monthly summary through January,
Yep.
right?
You want to start there?
So if you want to start there, since that's the first thing on the list, why not? Why don't you just give us the highlights?
Okay.
And, because I think the last one we saw was October-ish, so we're doing some catch-up on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, this report that I've given you is as of the end of January.
January, yeah.
January 31st, 2013. I think everybody has been given a copy. Overall, at the end of January, the budget should show a 42% if everything was going evenly. Most of the budgets are within that figure or over, so the majority of the budgets are in good shape. But the ones that I'm watching is legal, which is over by $2,200, and I'm projecting a total of $40,000 to the end of the year, at which time it will be, at town meeting, we will have to do a transfer of funds.
Well, that's why I suggested paying
Out of the CMD
for the CMD lawsuit instead of
agree.
out of the legal line item.
Everybody in agreement, that's,
We used the leftover money for building the facility, because that was a lawsuit arising out of the construction of the facility. So why go to the taxpayers for more money?
I agree.
I agree, if we have money there. Do we have money
there's
left in there?
$11,000.
11,000? Oh,
Money's
nice.
there.
Oh, great, yeah,
So why don't we do it that way?
yeah.
Okay, so all of
Okay.
that one case will be reclassified to.
As much of it as you can,
As much
right?
as is possible to the garage.
Yeah.
Money that's left over.
And they'll
Yep.
get us another month anyway.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think
Yeah,
that's,
yeah, buy
that's
a little bit of time.
that's good stuff.
But at the end of the day, it saves the taxpayers, because otherwise we
Yes,
would be
That's
taking.
Absolutely, and
That's
I'm
right.
happy to
Fresh
close.
That's a
money.
good use of
I
that.
really like
Just sits
closing
there, right?
old articles.
That-
Yes,
that
very
just
much.
sits
The other budgets that I'm watching, police overtime, the first 6 months, because they were on the old system, they were averaging 20 to 22,000 a month on overtime. When they switched to the Pittman schedule, the overtime reduced in January to 5,800. February was 9,500 because it included storms, extra time for the storms. So I think that budget is looking is much better. And I expect, on the model, I used a $50,000 transfer, but it may be as low as, which Rick and I will have to talk about, 35 to 40. There's also,
So there's opportunity there, maybe,
yes.
in what you currently have in the model, which we'll talk about shortly,
mhm.
yes.
yeah, I haven't
Good.
put it in, but
Yep.
I want to have a conversation with Rick first.
Yeah, I understand.
The police expense line is also, could be a possible problem. I understand there's some problems with cruisers, and the vehicle maintenance has.
So that loaded us up more than we would have expected for the 7 months, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, 2 seconds, this just happened. One of the vehicles that I wanted to replace this year, the Explorer, we just ran into an issue that had to do with some of the circuits and computer chips. And we just learned that the computer chips alone are going to run us between $3,000 and $4,000. So we might have to have a larger discussion about this.
So that's hot off the press.
Okay,
The snow and ice budget is one that we always watch every year, and as you know, we've had a lot more snow this year than we did last. Currently, it's at a $22,000 overrun. And I have to talk to Ed, but there are 2 unfilled positions in the CM&D payroll line, which may be able to be enough to cover the snow and ice payroll. So we have to I have to kind of keep an eye on that. I think it should be sufficient to cover a chunk of it.
Just before you leave that, I'm working on the state level to get some
Money, yeah.
money from the United States on, to reimburse some of the
Yeah,
expenses.
it'd be great if it could come in before the end of June.
That's the plan.
Yeah, good.
And this isn't just for Sherborn, it's for all the impacted communities. So there's a lot of impetus, a lot of communities that had that big blizzard, felt the, maybe not the 30 inches that Sherborn got, but still, but because we're in a high impact area, there's a compelling case for the United States to come and bail us out.
That'd be great. Another budget that I'm watching, employee benefits. Pete has already notified everybody, the advisory committee, and I think this.
And you have that in the model as a
It's
supplemental.
in the model as a supplemental.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was just unexpected enrollment changes at the
Right.
new year,
Yeah,
so it
weren't
wasn't.
projected, yeah.
So that's covered in the model.
Yeah.
And today, the town clerk told me that she is anticipating a possible overrun in her budget due to the 2 extra elections that are gonna be held this year.
Elections. Yeah. So you would have something in supplementals for that as well?
Yeah,
if
she
there's
hasn't,
a
she
need?
hasn't finished her, at least I didn't get her memo by the time I left. But I asked her to estimate how much it would be, because she doesn't know exactly.
Just on that subject, on the state level, we're submitting a bill to reimburse the cities and towns for the cost of the special election, because it's impact on all communities and it's considered an unfunded mandate and all that kind of stuff. So there will be,
Some money.
it affects every city and town, so every representative and every senator wants to sign on to the
Right.
bill. So we expect that to go through.
Yeah, good. That's it on the expenditure side. I don't know if anybody has any questions?
Well, because you're gonna talk about revenues, is that what you're gonna do? Why don't you do that, which is all part and parcel of this
Yeah.
report? Yeah, why don't you do that? Because then I'll have some comments. Brief ones, good ones.
On the revenue side, 30% of the estimated revenues have been received as of January 31st. The prior year, I believe it was 36%. It doesn't include motor vehicle excise tax, which is a big number in our estimated revenue. That number will be reflected in February when people pay their bills. So the February number hopefully will be a lot more in line with what I'd like it to be. Miscellaneous revenue that we've gotten so far is $85,000, which miscellaneous is one-time receipts that doesn't get categorized anywhere else, but there's a new category. The police are charging fees for towing and cruiser fees, which is a significant amount of, it was like $7,000 for the first 6 months. So I think I will be moving that into a category of its own rather than keeping it in miscellaneous. We received $257,000 more in taxes last year, but most of the categories in revenue are below the percentage of last year. Hopefully February.
But you don't see a trend
Mhm.
that says there's a problem there necessarily.
No, there's not, everything is
It's
just kind of.
timing, it's more timing than anything?
It's the timing of the,
Okay.
yeah. So that's it.
All right, well, I think it's great that you do this, so I hope we can get back on track doing these monthly and then have this face-to-face with us, I think is helpful. Hopefully you give this to advisory. One of the, and this helps us instead of looking at a bunch of reports, this summarizes
Yeah.
those reports, so I think it's a good exercise. You did provide us with, some detailed background, and one of the things you summarized, I don't know there's no name or something, but you put monthlies,
Yeah.
and then you did a brief comparison, or you totaled it for the period. And this could be an even this I found very useful, and could be even better if you maybe added, we'll work to figure out what we would project for budget for that 7 months, for example.
Okay.
And then budget to actual type of thing, would be good. But the other thing I would ask you to do is take a look, using your 42% rule, and you have this detail back here, where you also showed the same period last year.
Yeah.
And some of the percents this year versus last year, I would ask you to look and see whether there's some trend that pops out. Because, for
Yeah.
instance, schools are trending at 49% this year, 59% last year, right? Which means they had more of their budget left last year at this period of time. CM&D was 47.53. The library in that grouping was 44.53. So I don't know if there's anything in there, but it's worth taking a look at a little closer, see if there's
Okay.
something. Because the last thing you like to see when you're dealing with numbers are surprises, so,
Great.
you know what I'm saying?
Hopefully I'm anticipating them.
So then we have next on here, Ruth, just tell us where we're at with the audit report and the management letter. I think you're in draft form.
The audit draft was sent to all of the selectmen, as far as I know.
I don't know that we've got, did you get it? I don't think we have.
I don't know that.
I got it from Frank, but I haven't looked at it yet, but we don't have it officially, so that's something
No,
we
he
should
wanted to
we should
send out
get.
the draft without the management without the
All right,
responses because of your request last year.
right, so we want to see the drafts, and I don't think we have them.
Oh.
So if we could just
All
be
right.
sure we get those to look at. But they're ready to sign, is, it
Yeah.
sounds like where they're at, so.
Yep, we're just,
Subject to us reviewing and any comments we
Yeah.
might have before they sign it.
the,
They were trying to,
the draft of the management letter does not have any town responses in it.
what you've provided, you have those.
I've given them to you.
I have them, so you gotta,
But I
Usually
guess
give
they
'em.
wanted to see if the town, if the Board of
Us guys.
Selectmen had any comments.
Could I see these things?
so we have to get them, yeah.
I thought Frank had sent them to you directly.
No, he sent some stuff to me, but he didn't
I
send,
didn't know, because
yeah.
I was told by Jessica they went to the whole board. So
No.
I'll,
Well, maybe I should have sent them along. But, so we'll just do that next. I'll,
Yep.
if you can send to Diane what
Yep.
you have.
Yeah,
How
I
about
will.
that? And then we can get them. The next one we had was free cash estimate, which will then segue to the model,
right.
okay?
On the model, I have put 975. There's still our DOR rep that was working on it is on vacation.
Oh, and 975 is what you're expecting based on what you
Well,
submitted, or are you
no,
holding some cards close to your
I'm
vest
holding some
here?
cards here. I don't know. I'm expecting it to be between 975 and 1 million.
All right, so it's not a big
Somewhere,
number.
it's not specifically there. It will not be any higher than 1 million.
So
It
it's up a
is-
little bit from
it's
last
up
year, but not
100,000
much. Because the other thing was in the, when we, and I haven't looked at it yet, the audit report, they show the increase in the unrestricted fund balance of 400
But
grand.
that's
That's a
a
different animal, but,
accrual level.
You-
That's a whole different,
okay, so you gotta explain, you gotta answer that question for me offline if you could, okay? All right,
okay.
so when I look at your model.
Yep.
It's the town's model, not necessarily your model, but you put it together and it's for advisory. Right now, you're showing a $571,000 deficit to be dealt with. That advisory's working with budget makers and so forth, and I'm sure Mark will have some things to talk about. So if I look at some of the big sort of things that we're dealing with, we've got, general government has some, schools have some, and so forth, that are above advisory's guidelines. And advisory's guidelines reflected an 11% increase in the benefits. And one of the things on the benefits was typically at some point in the year, we get the real numbers for
Yes.
benefits. We don't have that yet?
He's putting it together. He's got another revised debt service budget, and the numbers will be in tomorrow on the debt service. He wanted to wait and submit.
Okay,
All
so we
the-
don't
all
know
the
that.
new
We don't know
budgets.
what that, so there's some
No.
potential up or
I
down,
think
we don't know.
when he's finished submitting both new budgets, there will be a small net gain, a small
Okay,
gain.
so that's not nirvana there, is what you're saying.
No, don't get your hopes up.
Okay. When we have a new cost item here, OPEB for 100 grand.
Yep.
But what I don't see is where it actually goes. Shouldn't you be showing that going, since it's projected to go either into the trust that we haven't done anything with, or it's gonna go into the stabilization. If it goes to stabilization, it needs to be down in this little box
I
here.
haven't, yeah, that
Right.
box is just tentatively completed.
Okay,
But
so,
the intent is, as I understand it, that that's gonna be raised in taxes as
an appropriation, I
an
understand,
appropriation, and then it will be moved into the
somewhere.
OPEB
Stabilization.
stabilization fund. yes.
But you don't show that in this model
Not yet.
yet?
Not yet,
Okay, as free cash nirvana,
right.
okay. The overlay is something I've come to learn. It seems we just freed up 168 grand of overlay, but we add, and I've asked you this question, what the reserve balance is there. I think that's worth exploring, because one of the things we're gonna talk about later, I've learned we add a net 130 to that number, it seems, for the last 4 or 5 years. So there must be a reserve balance that's
Yeah.
getting pretty large, and the question is, what is the number?
This 168 takes care of a chunk of it, but I can get the
I
number
just
to
wanna
you.
know the number, with or without the 168, okay?
I'll get it for you.
So then your revenue stuff, it seems to me, you're gonna be taking a harder look at the supplementals needs here, and there's some opportunities there, yes?
Mhm.
And it seems to me there might be at least some opportunity, as I call it, in the RFAs for ambulance, because I think we've been discussing that was gonna be a bigger number, and was part of the fire
I
chief
have to look at
deal.
where it is as
So
far,
you gotta
right.
take a look at that. And I think you need to take a look at the motor vehicle excise, the cell rentals, to be sure we're reflecting the new contract, because I think there's some payments that are gonna come in there in the next fiscal year, and the number you're using for licenses and permits. So I think you have some opportunities to pick up some dough, but you may have some exposures to identify, like state reimbursement or not. We're level funding that
Right
for
now,
the
I'm level
moment.
funding it.
Right, okay. So if I look at all those things, okay, I guess the bennies aren't 100 grand. And one of the other strategies here, and this gets to more for my friends on advisory, is that you probably got somewhere to the tune of 50 to 100 grand of revenue and supplementals to whittle away the deficit. And maybe there's a little bit of bennies, and consideration of how the circuit breaker percentage assumption used has 100 grand of opportunity there that I wouldn't
Possible.
not look at closely, you know what I'm saying? And then that means that there's less to tackle on the budget side. There's less pressure to tackle as much on the budget side, perhaps, is a way to put it. Because otherwise, I don't know what the plan is to balance the budget, and maybe that's a nice segue for
For Mark.
our favorite chair from advisory to give us a sense, because I'm not into this game anymore, you know?
Well, let me see if I can get you to, Mr. Chairman, have a couple minutes.
Sure.
Do you wanna?
David, I'm Mark Brandon, I'm Chair of the Advisory Committee.
Do you wanna date Mark?
Yeah.
Sure. So, just wanted to bring you up to date a little bit on how we're doing. You've got the model, so you know essentially where we're at.
Ugly.
But just to sort of recap how we got to our guidance, we worked with Ruth to take a look at the revenues that we could anticipate would come in to the town under Prop 2.5, as well as any other revenues that the town would get. Which, gave us about $500,000, give or take. We elected to basically allocate
$500,000 of increases
of
to work
increase
with. Gotcha,
to spread around and take care of
gotcha.
everybody.
Yep.
We elected to allocate a certain amount for employee benefits because we figured those were pretty much non-negotiable outside of maybe some changes in enrollment. And we also elected to allocate $100,000 to OPEBs. And that sort of came off the top, those two items. That left us with a remainder of about 1%. And that was what was contained in the guidance
Guideline.
letter that we
Right,
sent
that
out
was
to budget makers. And we've had good cooperation from many of them. CM&D is below 1%, treasurer, planning board, town clerk, board of health, the library, conservation commission, historical commission, recycling committee, cemeteries, and elder housing. So we've all done a really good job. But we've still got a few budgets that are above, and they happen to be the heavy hitters. Obviously, the schools is a big piece of this, and we are say, working very closely with them. And I'm reasonably confident that they're going to get to where they are. We had a meeting on Tuesday where we discussed our guidance. We didn't take a vote, but the general consensus was that we're sticking
Standing
we're
firm.
sticking with our guidance because frankly, there's no more money beyond that. So I think, we'll continue to work with the schools. We've gotten, we're getting good cooperation from our Dover counterparts at this point, who have a different philosophy, frankly, on funding the schools from the advisory committee, but are willing to work with us, because I think we and some other folks in the community have done a good job of communicating with them about Sherborn's situation. But the reason I'm here tonight is to ask you to revisit some of the budgets under your control. Out of the $570,000 we're looking for, about $129,000 is in budgets that are Board of Selectmen budgets. We've got about $46,000 in administration, $10,000 in accounting, $22,000 in the police department, $46,000 in the fire department, $2,000 for the transfer station, and $2,500 on Council of Aging. So we need to find a way to get that $129,000. And I would just add that it's critical when we, for instance, when we work with the region, because our partner is definitely watching us and how we behave, and whether or not we stick to our own recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think the fire is actually 24 rather, not 46. The 46 is fire and police.
Is there a correction on that number?
Yeah.
So fire is 24, not 46?
Right, that's a.
Given that police and fire were added together in 46.
Subtotal for police and fire.
Does that change the 129 total?
I hope so.
So we've already saved 20% of what we're looking for?
That was quick work.
Oh, well, that's what I'm trying to do.
All right.
We got 22,
Yeah, 22 for
Got
police and
22
24
for
for
police.
fire rescue.
fire rescue, you're right, it's 24. So there you
So
go.
there we saved
Well done.
22. Yeah, all right.
Hey, we saved 20%.
I've done my part.
You can
Split it
go
up
home, Peter. You
5
can go
ways.
home.
You
You're
guys
done.
do the rest of it.
That's done.
Yeah, okay. No, but this is serious, because we have to get a long-term view how we avoid this, constantly deal with this stuff. And the other thing, you're looking at a guy who's completely flabbergasted today. Because I discovered that, all along, we've been thinking our pension liability for the town, it's been $4.5 million, just kind of skipping along there year after year. Well, one of the things we're dealing with later tonight, in the very back pages, as I was reading last night, it says pension liability is $8 million from 4.5. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And part of it is changing assumptions of earnings from 8.5 to 8.25, or vice, 8.25 to 8 or something, but that's a huge, we just took on $3.5 million more debt than I thought we had 4 hours ago.
So you didn't do so well with this 22?
No, so on a net basis,
All
way
right.
up. All right, well, that's
A little
challenging.
astounded. We didn't know that before.
Yes. So I'm sure our OPEB liability, if they change assumptions like that, it keeps going up, but it's gonna go up quite a bit. You're gonna do another
But luckily, we
evaluation.
haven't invested too much yet.
Wow.
Well, there are reforms going on at the state level on the OPEB piece, particularly the health insurance for retirees. That's gonna produce like 30 billion of savings. And what we're trying to do is to move those savings up earlier, because that's like over a 20-year period. But most of the savings are in the second decade rather than the first decade. So there's intense negotiations going on between the House and the Senate and the governor, trying to solidify those savings. So these numbers are gonna go down or be different, their projections into the future. And as you can see, changing a small piece of the projection brings about
Significant, yeah,
significant.
change in the number, but still big
So that's
numbers.
being worked on. And pension reform, there was 2 waves of pension reform. We now have the second phase was to change the retirement dates and all of that. So people hired after
New
April
people,
1 of
yep.
2012 have reduced benefits over those who were there before,
Yeah.
which again is going to produce savings. It's just those are back-ended further down the road. We still have people whose benefits we're not changing, those who are vested already. So to some extent, we have to get through those. The new wave will be at a lower level.
Well, the 100,000 that we're putting away every year is, I think, admirable, but it's still only a
It's
fraction of what you
chipping away at it.
Yeah.
need to cover
Yeah.
the liability.
It's less than half of what we need to fund it on a normal funding basis.
Earnest money. But drop
And
in
that's
the
just for the
bucket.
town, it's not our portion of the region, which is, I don't know if they're doing anything different, which was nothing before.
I don't think so, I haven't heard
Yeah.
that.
And they have a bigger nut. So
So,
what do you want us to do
well,
besides
you're
find
on,
money?
you're coming to visit with us on the 19th.
We are.
Looking forward to it.
That
We should bring bags of money, obviously.
gives you a month to work on it. But I would sincerely ask you to.
It's a good thing for the new guy to
With the
get his
guidance.
hands dirty,
That's what
learning
his
all the budgets too.
Skill is finding money.
Poor Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Have
Thanks,
you opened
Mark.
all the drawers of your desk? Maybe there's some in there.
It's all, right on this line.
All right.
It's just new high.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was
And
figuring.
that's the fire is, or the other
Yep,
piece
yep.
of it, okay?
That's the inevitable,
Yeah.
inevitable increase.
All right, Ruth. So Ruth and I keep going back. I sit down with her almost on a weekly basis and make her day. And we talk about reconciliations and stuff like that. And she hasn't keyed my car yet, but we'll keep at it.
I'm
But
working on it.
uh,
Actually, I'm talking to
we had circuit
Dave.
breaker. We roughly touched that. You did a nice analysis for me, which I needed. I pushed you a little bit on that, and you finally got me the way I wanted it, which may not be the right way, but I got it my way, which allowed me to sign off on something over there. So I appreciate that. 2 other things on this list here for tonight, DOR recommendations, so just a brief update of where any of those are going on. And then the last thing is just a reasonable idea of what thoughts you have to help get David up to speed on your area in the financial health and challenges of the town.
Okay.
How's that?
For the DOR recommendations that were addressed to the town accountant's office, they were talked about centralizing accrued sick and vacation time into one location. As of now, the treasurer's office does keep track of all non-union employees. So it's just a matter of me notifying the police and the highway that we need copies of their records. And at the end of the year, the auditors always require the town treasurer to put together a liability for.
And that's in our bylaws, I think,
Right.
isn't it? Yeah, and Pete does that, right?
And
Yeah.
Pete does that.
yeah.
So that's really, they said town accountant is really already being done most of the part,
Right.
mostly by the treasurer. They talked about implementing a purchase order system. I would have to buy a PO system from the software company. I'm not sure Sherborn is,
I think that's the way I would answer, talk about that, is say that's a recommendation, that's something
Yeah.
to continue to look at, and something that you'd certainly
Good.
work with David
which
on.
we would talk about.
So I
Definitely.
think David has some
And that's
Administrative
basically-
skills to
material.
bring there, yeah.
right.
Definitely.
They talked about internal audits, which we sent out a memo this past week to all the departments saying that we're commencing internal audits.
Excellent.
The first one is on Monday.
Who are you doing?
We targeted the Board of Health, only
Excellent.
as a, but we have a list that gets us through the end of the year. We'll have covered every department.
Within a year,
With-
wow,
By the end of this year.
yeah, wow.
As long as
That's great.
as long as.
So what do you do when you're gonna do the internal? You're looking at transactions
We're looking,
primarily?
we're looking at what are their turnover logs, making sure that they match what we have, making sure they're in numerical order, that their numbers match our numbers. We're looking at any cash receipts that they get, if they
How they
have
handle
to
'em.
issue
Yeah,
cash, a numbered cash receipt book.
yeah.
We have to, look at the permitting that's issued and make sure the numbered permits match the turnovers. So it's,
Good.
basically that's.
You're able to handle that additional task, okay?
Well, yeah,
Without
luckily I have an amazing assistant
There you go.
who is,
She covers for
Former
you quite a bit.
auditor.
Yeah, no, she's amazing.
so she is very valuable to
Yeah,
me.
that's great, yeah.
And she and I have
good.
worked together on putting this whole thing together.
Okay, excellent.
All right.
The next thing, they talked about re-advertising for auditing services, which is fine by me. I don't know if it's really necessary.
That's another one, I think we worked that out.
It's something
yeah,
that
as
we
go.
could talk about.
Yeah.
We've had the same auditors for a while, but they changed teams, so it's not like it's the same exact people that come every
Right.
time. But that's something that we can talk about. The timing has to be right, because if you get too late in the year,
That's right, their field work
the
starts. in-
field work starts in May.
Yeah,
So
Right.
we're almost too late for this year. We might, if we're gonna do it, we should start the process in
Right.
the fall.
Right.
And they talked about reporting. They, currently we send out monthly reports to every department on paper. We know people are looking at them because they come running back with changes that they wanna make, so we know that's happening. The DOR recommended doing a PDF or an Excel download from our system, but it's very cumbersome to do it and would be much more inefficient. But what I do wanna do is have them be able to go online and see their own department without changing the numbers, but look at their own reports online,
That's good.
which requires me to have software people come in, set it up, and then I have to do some training, so.
The software can do it, it just needs a tweak to set it up,
Yeah, they
basically,
ha- yeah.
Yeah.
So I've already talked to them about that.
Well, that's something too, I think that we need to keep coordinated with the TA, because that sort of effort, not just in your department, but in other areas, needs to be
Yep.
put together as a townwide
Right.
resource. So I think that's another ongoing IT initiative to do that. We talked about that a little bit yesterday.
Basically, those were the recommendations that
for your
were
area.
targeted in my department, that I could find. I looked at,
Okay. Good. And what about for getting the smart guy at the end of the table even smarter?
we've already scheduled a meeting,
Okay, great.
right?
Well, we don't wanna show them your good stuff till you meet with them,
Basically I'll be just giving him more in-depth detail about what we've just been doing and walk through the model and how we put it together and,
yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I would say the budget, given the challenge that's been thrown at us from, Mr. Brandon there, that, showing,
review
will you
those.
have a budget book all ready
I
to
do have-
go
Oh,
for him?
Diane, I
Diane,
think we'll
some?
put together one.
Okay, good. Nice. All right,
So,
thanks, Ruth, that's all I had,
anything else?
Captain.
No, sir, I think you covered it admirably.
Great,
All right.
thanks, it's good to see you here,
Yeah,
Ruth,
right.
Let's try to do it every month,
Right.
shall we?
Maybe a month and a half.
Yeah.
Well, that was good.
Yeah, we got through that.
We got through that all right. All right, we are a little early
Yeah.
on our next effort. Is there any housekeeping that needs to be done? Have we done it?
I think we've done it.
Yeah,
Pete's here.
Pete is here. I was wondering if we were waiting for Selectman Durensis to return, or we can just carry on. Pete, do you want to come up and tell us what's going on? Oh, and the two events are going to occur simultaneously. Amazing, thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, thanks for all the light,
Timing is everything.
thanks for the light reading, Pete.
Dave?
Yeah, exactly right.
Sheesh.
Okay, what we have here is, we're accomplishing two things. The principal thing is, we're taking advantage of today's low interest rates. be able to lock those in. We had some bonds in 2003, and we are refunding those, which means we're basically going to build them into another bond to get the lower interest rates. And we have a series of projects that we began in 2010, 2011, and they've been borrowed on a temporary basis, and this gives us an opportunity to permanently finance them. The bond that's being issued, when we're through, will be about $3,100,000, roughly $150,000. $1,900,000 of it, and I'm giving you some very round numbers, the specifics we can give you later, are the refunding. In other words, the two major projects that were still remaining unpaid, not in which the debt wasn't completed, was on the renovation of this building and the renovation of the fire station. All of the other items that were in that particular bond were short-term type of thing, equipment and so forth, and they've all been paid for at this point. And then, as I say, there was about $1,250,000 of new projects, including fire engines and some other things, and elderly housing renovations that are ongoing. This gives us the opportunity to refund those. So what is necessary tonight, as I said, I sent you all an email today, and the effective interest rate that we ended up with is around I haven't got it in
Yeah,
front of me.
1.5 to 2, depending on the year, but it's 1.5.
No, well, no, but the
Oh, the
effective
effective
rate
rate?
was is 1 point,
Yeah,
in the order of magnitude, 1.7.
Yeah, 1.7, somewhere in one of his emails.
The thing we need to do, that bond council has put together a series of votes that you need to take, and so we would need to accomplish that today. Later on, around the first of next week, we should have the rest of the papers that need signing. You don't have to sign, don't have to sign anything tonight, although the clerk, which I guess is you, Peter?
That's me.
Okay, the clerk does have to sign a certificate certifying to the vote that you guys take tonight. It's a rather long vote. I don't know who is the one that's going to take the deep breath and read it. Is that you, Paul?
I think what I'm going to do is to move the motion as presented by the treasurer.
I second that motion.
Yeah, absolutely right.
About a page and a half of motions, and
Yeah.
If I could just supplement your presentation by reading from your memo, which says that the low bidder's interest rate is 1.20701%. By way of comparison, the true interest cost for the 2010 bonds we sold was 3.309%. So I think the effort to do the bonding and refunding now was worth it. The calculated PV net savings is $207,130. And so I commend you and praise you for saving the taxpayers $207,130 and for convincing Standard & Poor's that we're better than France or United Kingdom and a few other places by upholding our AAA bond rating.
that was good news.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank
Well
you
done.
very much.
Pete, sorry, I had a list of questions for you there, and I appreciate you getting back to me so quickly on them. But one question still remains, because we're talking 200 grand, that's the savings on the interest rates, right?
At the present values.
Present value of the savings of the interest rate, so the question is what the cost is.
It's on the cash flow.
It's on the,
Now,
so that savings is on the cash flow, so that's net of costs?
what they do is they take the old funding schedule
Yeah.
on the 2003
You sent me
bond, they
some of
take
that
the
at the
new
end.
one, and they compare the two, run a present value analysis of those series of cash flows, and that's where they get the savings.
And so that's where the 200 is net of your investment crowd that you deal with and the bond council costs as well? Or
No,
no?
that's just
what I'm trying to
the
get to.
cash flow.
That's just the cash flow. So
difference.
what
Yeah,
I'm trying to
the
get is
differential in
what's the
cash flow.
cost to do this refinancing? You understand? So to get to the net savings. If it costs us 200 grand to save 200 grand, that's I don't know that it does, but that's an awful lot of work to do, from investment advisor.
Well, I mean, this is just straight up, that's straight up for money here.
If the question you're getting at, I think, is what does the bond cost to undertake?
Correct.
$42,000.
Transaction cost.
That will come out of the premium. The bond was sold at roughly an $88,000 premium. and those costs will be deducted from
Covered
that. The
by
remaining
that.
premium becomes part of, is a revenue, town revenue.
Yeah, okay.
If that's what you're looking for, that's.
I'm
the
just
number.
looking for the net number, that's all I'm really looking for.
Now, the present value is like any project, anything in private sector. In deciding whether you want to undertake a project, you look at the
Right.
cash flows, you bring it back to
No, I
present, say,
understand that,
if
yeah.
you invest this
Is
money,
this-
this is what you'll say.
Yeah, yeah.
Or what it'll cost
Yep,
you, yeah.
yep.
That's all it is.
That's a good number.
Well done.
That is a fabulous number. All right, did I hear you move?
did.
These
And I
as
seconded it,
written?
and I
so it's
seconded.
moved and seconded as written. I have faith in the bond council's language, so all in favor? Aye. Thank you, Pete.
Okay, thank you.
Well
All right,
done.
so I have to do
Yeah,
something.
I got a certificate for you to sign here.
You have to certify that we just did this.
As I say,
That's tremendous.
we'll be in touch with you first of the week when the bond signed documents.
Yeah,
So I can give this to Diane,
About
Pete?
4 or 5 yet, so.
We'll get him signed first shot. All right.
Thank you, Gary.
Terrific,
Thanks,
thanks, Pete.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right. Now we are
We do the good stuff.
at the warrant article portion of tonight's entertainment program.
Can we have town council? We have town council here.
We do have town council here.
Come up to the,
Table and do that town council thing that you do.
we've been keeping Barbara busy.
Yes, the frequent flyer miles are racking up. Now, I'm gonna have to go through a couple of these things, as I am not saying that everything we wanted in here is in here. And we'll have to decide what to do with that. So if you guys wanna start on some specific issues that you've got going on,
Well, why don't we just go article by article?
we can do that.
The first article is to act on reports of various town officers and committees. And so I'd like to put that on the warrant.
Mr. Chair, I'd like a copy of what you discussed.
Right here.
Seems to me to be a good article.
Yeah, but it's wordy.
Yeah.
Only got one.
It's pithy. Diane, we have a couple more. Do I have one over here in the stack too? You might want to do that. If you know how many to have. I think I might have one slightly ratty one kicking around in my stack of stuff.
So I'd say Articles 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
Since they
I agree.
I agree.
are standard articles we've used every year.
Yep.
That brings me to Article 4. I thought we said
We
not
don't
to
need
do Article 4 the last time we discussed this, and now it's here.
It's here again.
So
Did someone
Weren't
ask
these,
for it?
weren't these going to be rolled into the budgets?
Well, that's the way advisory is. Mark's still here? Mark, there's an article here to consider collective bargaining agreements, and there might be one, maybe CM&D this year, maybe not. And you know I've been advocating that the voters should have a say on these collective bargaining agreements, but advisory has taken the position to just fold them into Article 3 and take no action on Article 4. And if that's what you're planning to do we need Article 4?
Well, will the agreement be available to be circulated, published, so that the town knows what they're voting on? And we can attach it to our letter?
I don't know if we know the answer to that.
I don't know
We
the answer
haven't,
to that.
we haven't brought him up to
Obviously, the
speed
answer
yet.
should be yes.
So, and we don't have Ed Wagner here, nor do we have the council we're using negotiating
Because I think
that.
that's the problem people have with this, is they don't know what the heck they're voting on.
Which is, yeah, I concur that it's a problem. So maybe what, should we find out
Well,
about
the
this?
issue for us right now is, do we have a separate Article 4 or not? If we don't have an Article 4,
Well, can we withdraw it? Because I don't know the definitive answer if we need anything, given what
You
Well,
leave-
I'm aware of with CM&D,
Yes,
right? In terms of what's open with CM&D currently.
right, so you just want to leave it there and pull it if we have
Well,
to?
I don't know, I'm just used to seeing it, and then I think it does beg the question, what do you tell the voters? And I think that's important.
Well, we've never used the article, because we've always, advisory's always included it in Article 3 and not in Article 4.
No, it's been there in every other, it's in last year's, it's been in every one I've seen, that's why the question came up.
But if
Well,
it's not
it'll
gonna
be-
be used, why complicate the thing? The thing I'm suggesting is, I mean, I think Article 4 ought to be used. I've been advocating for that, and I think that's the better
Okay.
practice
Yeah.
statewide. But if we're not gonna use it, and it's such a long warrant, why put it in there? It's not meant to, be antagonistic to advisory. It's,
Well, I'm just
take
looking
it
at,
out.
but Paul, I'm looking at last year's report, and they recommended favorable action on this same type of
Article 4.
article. So, and I think that I remember doing it in years
Yeah, I
past.
don't have a problem leaving it in, but I think we should, but what I have
Have
heard is
information to back
people are
it up.
wondering, what are we voting on? So, and I think it'd be educational for people to see what's in the contract.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
value
surely
of
will.
having,
That's why I'd rather have it, yeah.
the value of having a separate article is that if town meeting votes no on it, it allows it to go back to the collective bargaining table and renegotiate the business terms. If you don't have it separately addressed, then the deal is pretty well done, and it just becomes folded into the numbers.
So I
So
think-
advisory has the opportunity to reject collective bargaining agreements. That was the point of having a separate article.
Yeah, I'm happy
And
with
if you
4.
think
I
of
like it.
Four.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
it.
it's Article 4, let's keep Article 4 in here.
Okay.
Let's bloat the warrant by 8 lines and leave Article 4 where it sits. I think that's a good
Yeah.
thing for us to have. All right,
Article 5, do we have all the items that we need?
Not aware of any others.
yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. I'm not aware of any others either, but I think, and Diana's disappeared.
And Ruth is gone.
Well, I think the idea, I guess this is for Barbara's perspective, we want the article to be generic without any specifics.
Yeah.
And we want that box to be below the line, if you will. That's just for information. That's what we know now. And if a bill surfaces between now and town meeting, we want to be able to supplement it.
So you want to just take that box out?
No,
Is that what
we
you wanna
want the
do?
box in
Oh,
there,
okay.
but not part of the article.
Okay. Well,
The
at the
article
moment,
should stop right with take action related thereto, and there should be no reference down to the box.
I don't
So
think,
it says the following various line items.
Yeah, the following years.
so you want to take out the words "the following"?
Yes.
Following various line item? Okay, there you go.
Or,
Yeah, just various line items.
so supplementing various line items, not the following.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, very good.
That works.
That works. Town's fiscal year 4.
And
Okay,
so
that's clean.
Article 5 is on the warrant.
Article 5's on the
Works for
warrant,
me, yeah,
Article 6 is Chapter 90.
yep.
and that's,
We're all in agreement that should
we're
be
all
on.
in agreement with that one.
Then Article 7 is the standard article on revolving funds.
Yep.
We're in agreement that goes on.
Yep.
Article 8 is our omnibus capital.
Right,
And here we have a whole variety of things from $5,500 to $1.3 million.
And I'd asked the chair last time whether we wanted to prioritize any of these by order.
yeah,
The other way to consider is sort of a back of the napkin guide. Every year in our budget, we reduce principal by roughly $1 million. So you could argue, well, if we're taking away $1 million via principal, I could fund $1 million and be whole. It's one way to look at it.
it's
you
one
know
way to
what I
look
mean?
at it, Peter.
If the money, because otherwise we're pushing it off. You know, we're a business that still has to have equipment, has to do this, has to do that.
All right.
And that's ongoing. So I just throw that out there as a rough yardstick to work. Under that yardstick, it makes me want to see the capital needs for Pine Hill do the 1 year every 5, every year for the next 5 years, instead of the big lump. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I concur.
And all these others, except for maybe the last one, fit within the parameter.
Of
That
being
rough
under that one
parameter.
flat line.
Yeah, and then I'm more comfortable with what's on there.
Yeah, just for the benefit of Mark Brandon, the issue here was that Pine Hill was proposing this 1.3 million, which is a 5-year program, and they're gonna spend it over 5 years. And we had asked them, what's wrong with doing what you need this year, and then what you need next year, and do them in a series of small steps. And I think the school committee had an answer for that, which was, this is what we need, let's do it all, get it all done at once with one override and so on. If we do it all at once, we have this big number here. Our concern was that the voters might say, why should we vote for that much? At some point, when you load up the capital debt exclusion number sufficiently high, you run the risk that the voters will say no to everything.
Yeah.
So that kind of was the choice, and the school committee decided that's what they wanted, so that's what we put in here.
Are you suggesting a model that Woodhaven used at last year's town meeting?
Yeah, that's what the schools are doing.
I mean, to approve the whole thing and then just use it over a period of time?
That's what this number is, 1.3 million number
So he
is.
could do what he did with Woodhaven and borrow it as he needs to short term and then extend it all together. Okay.
That's just, I just wanted Mark to understand the choice.
No, they've been to
sort of
visit with
discussed.
us, and we've heard their proposal.
Okay.
We haven't voted on it yet.
Do you have any inkling?
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what
I
you guys are
don't,
thinking.
I think there's differences of opinion. I know I am concerned on a couple of
The big number?
levels with the size of the number. I think there's also a practical management concern here where I think that when you ask budget makers to come back every year, you tend to get sharper proposals. And I also have a concern about putting taxpayers on the hook, for the next 5 years, if we don't have an opportunity to weigh in on these things. But that's my personal opinion. I really don't have an idea of how the
Well,
committee's going to do that.
concurs here, I think, as well.
Question.
Frank, do you have a quick add? Did I miss anybody, or?
Well, you
I have
got
a
Frank
question.
hanging there.
Yes,
I've got Frank hanging, then I've got you, Paul. Frank.
actually, we're still working on the capital budget. The reason we present it this way is this the way last year capital budget suggests we do it, similar to Woodhaven, to have, a planned 5-year plan. And so that's what we did. And we just presented it recently, the capital budget, and they are gonna continue to meet on this and give their input. But that was a capital budget suggestion.
So you're amenable to having a look at a slight increase in transaction costs perhaps, and funding lesser amounts over a number of years as opposed to one big bite now?
Well, the main thing is to have something workable that supports it on a regular basis, because the school's gonna need it on a regular basis.
No.
And it might be more difficult in some ways to come back every single year for, $250,000, $300,000, whatever it is, than it is to look at the long-term plan. But we're gonna listen to capital budget and see what they have to say.
Did you-
Because I hear you, what you're saying, but I'm also hearing that there might be some support at advisory for a staged approach. And I'm hearing sort of rumblings that there might be some support on the selectman level for a staged approach as well, for all the reasons that we've just talked about in general terms.
If I could just ask Frank, did you get any information from Pete, looking at it one way versus the other, over the 5-year period doing the financing? Because you were, I think I asked the question, I never got an answer, and I think you were gonna follow up with him as
I
well.
got the numbers from Pete on the 5-year, and I let him know that we were looking, and might want him to price out, so to speak, the 1 year also.
But that hasn't been done yet? Okay, you don't have that
Right.
information yet. I mean, I'm leaning towards where Mark described it myself. and it fits my little back of the
Yeah,
napkin
no,
parameter, which
that's-
I'm starting to like.
It's working for me too. Paul, do you have a quick one?
Quick one. I thought we were getting state funds for this. How does that work into this kind of alternative?
State
It'll be
funds.
asked at town meeting, I'm asking in there.
On this for the capital needs of the school, not the road.
Oh, this is not the Pine Hill Access
No.
Road?
No,
No.
no.
I misunderstood.
You know what also is a little difficult to be here? We don't have capital budgets weigh in on this yet. You know, it's a little bass backwards, if I could use that word here.
You could.
Okay.
But remember, our function tonight is not to decide whether these projects are
But we're
meritorious.
putting
But
them
rather
on.
putting
Yeah.
them on.
Okay,
Yes.
I
Does
understand.
somebody want them, and if the school committee in their deliberations has decided they want this number to go to the voters, I, as a selectman, I'm not gonna deny them the right to present the number. So the question really for us is, are these 12 items everything, or has something's been left out? And I guess back to Barbara again, these were intended to be illustrative, but not part of the article. In other words, we want to have an omnibus article that says, as you have it, but all these items below, should another item come up, we want to be able to add a 13 or a 14 or a 15 without someone saying it's beyond the scope of the article. So these were meant to be below the line,
Right.
rather than part of the article.
Yeah, I like that approach, Paul. I think that's good, gives us flexibility.
How do we accomplish that?
But just the only other thing I'll say is, somebody's mentioned to me, you know, geez, if you guys are putting X, Y, Z on there, that article, that is 70% of the way there, because we put it on.
Yeah.
See? And perception's reality in some situations like that. So I think we have to have some sense of comfort as well when we're doing these. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Well, but the other
Maybe
thing
we-
is, if the, for example, if the Board of Selectmen has, or a commitment to getting capital needs at Pine Hill School done, because we believe they're good and worthy, is it not also incumbent upon us to figure a way to put this before the voters that will get some of that done?
yeah.
If I throw $1.3 million in front of people, they're gonna choke and not vote for it because it's too much money. Then we get nothing fixed. Whereas if we negotiate and say, hey, we're only looking for $345,000 this
Yeah,
year
right.
in order to fix the boiler and the, ceiling pans,
Yeah.
or whatever else.
Yeah.
That way, we actually get the voter to consider the issue, as Mark had said. You get a sharper image of what's to be done with the money,
Yeah, I do
and
like
perhaps
that.
a buy-in from the voter. So I think it does make a great deal of difference how we present our perspective in terms of what we're supporting here. Of course, I want to support the school building committee's desire to improve the school, but I also want to perform the role that we're here for, which is to facilitate them. It's not just a rubber stamp. We're here to facilitate access to that and see if we can increase their chances with the electorate of getting what we all need done. So, I resonate there rather strongly with why it matters whether we present $1.3 million or 345.
Yes.
Am I making
Yeah,
sense?
Yeah.
Well, this is what the school committee requested, so that's why that number is here.
Right, but you guys are looking at capital budget and might find another way to do that if that made sense to you.
Possible.
Okay.
Or we could, see what sort of recommendation the advisory might make and decide whether we would support that recommendation or different too.
Right, so how do we,
I think we should leave it the way it is for now until we get closer to it.
That's good enough for me. Let's
Fair
leave it
enough.
the way it
Okay,
is.
that's good.
fair enough?
It's the school committee speaking, so.
And can we correct the communications number, because we know it's 110,
110, not 100.
That should go to 110.
right? And I don't know if the fire department HVAC numbers
any
got
TBD?
anything, or even a
Neil,
range.
anything closer on the fire department?
The HVAC stuff?
Not yet.
Not yet,
All right.
Fair enough.
but it's below the line, so even if this went to print with TBD in it, we'd work around it, because we're trying to do the right thing. Yeah.
We're all right.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Here,
Good.
The next two articles are the schools, regional schools, and I'd like to suggest to town council that we embed in both 9 and 10 the alternative of free cash as a possible source. So I wonder if we could have the articles read to see if the town will raise and appropriate borrow or transfer from available funds to meet this purpose, and then go on with and determine whether there'd be a debt exclusion. That way, if advisory and town meeting vote to apply free cash to this, we can do it in one article. Because at the top of the next page, we have proposed additional placeholder alternative articles, which were basically the free cash articles. Can we combine them? Can you figure out a
Get rid
way
of
to
some of those,
combine
yeah.
them with 9
Well,
and 10, so that
but-
both those options are there?
But what you're suggesting, Paula, is really just something simple as, or from transfer from available sums, and you're
Yeah.
inserting that into this language of both of these two. That seems pretty simple to me. It's not as in-depth as I think what these alternative ones are talking about, because
Right.
they're getting into the intermunicipal agreement,
Right, so I would take out 11 and 12
yeah.
and
just
figure out a way to
add the
Yeah.
9 and 10 free
the
cash.
transfer from available funds. Because remember now, we have a projection of possibly $1 million of free cash, and we have
But a lot of that's spoken
168,000.
for, yeah.
And we have 168,000 in overlay, so
That's
in essence,
already in the model though, Paul.
I understand, but it's almost 1.2 million
No.
of,
No. No, they used the 168 in the model to pay for supplementals. That's in there now, yeah.
right,
Oh,
but
yeah.
otherwise it would have come out of free cash, so
That's
it's,
correct.
it's like,
So there's a million, it is like having a 1.2 million of free cash in essence.
yeah,
But all she has is 950 to start with, she's using up, and she's down to 3.5% or something in the model, right, of free cash after just a small portion of supplementals.
well, what you're
Before
saying
any
is
articles.
that it's unlikely they were gonna transfer from available
Correct.
funds.
I would say.
Overlay and free cash is available funds, but even so,
The option's
what's
there.
wrong?
I agree with
putting
that,
the-
yeah.
The option in,
Yeah, I agree with
So
that.
you'd like to dump 11 and 12 and add that language to 10?
Just combine them.
yes,
Yeah,
is that okay?
can that be done?
It can be done, yes.
But you're not combining to talk about the intermunicipal agreement, are you?
No,
No.
we
It's
don't,
just
we
that
don't need
phrase
town
is
meeting
talking
approval of that, we can do an intermunicipal agreement without town meeting approval. Right.
Yes.
Yes? That you would not recommend doing it anyway, right?
Well, I don't know how much we want to get into this tonight, the whole issue of, whether the town and we went through this a couple of years
No,
ago.
that's,
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no.
it's 7:20.
But the answer is, I can combine them into two articles.
But
Okay,
all
let's do
we're
that.
asking is that phrase added.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's what we're
That's
asking.
simple as that.
and deletion of 2
And,
articles.
that's right.
Dump
Make the
11 and
warrant
12.
shorter,
I agree.
And add
I
the
agree.
language.
Okay, we're on the same, page.
yeah.
Excuse me.
On the same page.
All right, so, then we're done with that.
Yeah,
13
13's
is the
good.
cemetery one, it's an annual thing, so can we
Right.
put that on?
That's gone.
Article 14 is the easement on Whitney Street.
Yep.
This is part of the comprehensive permit. We're entitled to it, why not take it?
Let's take it.
So can we put this on the warrant?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
Peter has to
yeah, no,
recuse yourself, I think.
well,
'cause
I
you
did
were made-
recuse myself, but then we decided last time I didn't have
You
to.
didn't have to?
Because it's an easement, so
Right.
I'm fine with it.
Fine.
Okay. Then the next one is,
The zoning
Yeah,
this
that's,
is from the planning board, it's a request from the
that's
planning
good.
board.
that's
and
good,
This is good,
Yep.
Barbara's looked at it,
yeah.
it's all good.
so there's no objection to that being on the warrant.
Nope,
16, same thing.
same.
17, same thing.
Can I just ask a question, Barbara? On they have added, the planner has added, in accordance with the provisions of MGL 30B, Section 16,
That to establish value?
which is the valuation establishment, I guess, and so I don't know what those valuation establishment rules are, but the key in all this is that the taxpayers go away, the voters go away comfortable that there's a meaningful valuation of fair market value used in the conveyance.
No matter what the quid pro quo winds up being, right?
Yeah. So the laws there do cover that pretty well?
Yeah, the 30B, Section 16 is the Uniform Procurement Act provision for real estate. It requires the town, before it disposes of land, to obtain an appraisal, essentially.
Fair value.
Of the fair value.
Okay.
Yes.
Easy enough.
See, all right?
My question was longer than the answer, that's what I like.
So that I have no objection to, because
Nope.
that covers it.
That's great,
18,
great.
Same thing, planning board?
Yep.
Any objection?
nope.
That brings us to 19. 19 is
Just did that.
the,
19 we just did the other night,
is
so
the
that's okay.
marijuana one.
Yep.
That's going to eliminate or regulate.
And this is the current, I understand, Donna, that this is the current unified grand wetlands article that has been brought together by so many hardworking people over the past little while, and I think we've gotten universal.
And we have the chairman
Approval.
of the Conservation Commission here. Is this what you want on the warrant?
So be it.
I move we put it.
Well, can I,
There's one change.
Sorry?
Oh, there's one change,
What
we
is
have a,
this,
we have a typo,
yeah, you have a
This is a
typo.
cleanup of the Wetlands Act.
yes.
A lot of housekeeping. There was a number of,
On
it's,
the,
it's a good thing.
if you wanna get to the one typo that's found.
Yeah, where's the one word?
We have-
Meeting,
Yes,
should be meaning under 7.5.
it's on the,
7.5?
let's see, it's the
There's
one-
nothing in 7.0 there.
Well,
Gets
go
to the end.
below, we substituting it for one,
Oh,
it's on the 5th page, just after the cross-outs.
Oh, instead of meetings, it's
Yes,
It
it
says
should-
meetings, it should be meetings.
meetings. Okay. Can I just,
She'll
this,
have the-
as we see it in here now,
Yeah.
we have to reference what we're changing in the existing bylaw, so we have to have some sort of lead into this. This is the text of how the bylaw would read with the changes after the red lines are taken out, correct? But what we have to
Yes.
do is we're changing, chapter 17, section 1 by doing the following.
Yes.
So that reference has to be added to what we,
Right, Barbara
Correct.
has to
Yeah, that's
actually
just-
add the article language.
Okay,
This is
okay.
the
Yes.
all right, okay.
text of the new.
Yep. Then I have just one question on burden of proof where we use the term values.
Yes.
Can somebody define values and
If you look at the first paragraph of the bylaw,
look
Yeah.
at the first?
It's about equivalent to interest, but a little more broad.
first paragraph is what summarizes that.
Well, it calls it interest.
Well, it also says found wetland values, yes, they use, at the state level, they use both, they're both used also.
But not much different.
All right, I don't see it, but
I can't
okay.
even tell you the difference.
All right, but this is state
Yeah.
terminology,
Yeah.
okay,
Which was the point, to
okay.
come back to
I just didn't, all right. it was a
defensible,
term
not
that was
messing with.
good enough.
Barbara, would it make sense to take out values in certain interests everywhere?
Just bring it to whatever state.
Or
state
define
language is
values,
used.
however
The
they
state
do.
uses both.
Yeah, they use them
Then let's,
interchangeably.
it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
Am I understanding it's a non-issue?
Yes, you are.
Good, then it's a non-issue.
But it's an issue to a
Yeah.
voter,
Right, they want.
and you haven't explained it well enough to me.
Well, you could
So the
say,
first
I'm a dope,
paragraph-
but I don't see it in the, like, I'm reading it 3
you
times, I
could
don't
say
see it.
collectively the interests or values.
Or
protected
values,
by
that's
this.
what I want.
Yeah.
Just add the word or values in the first paragraph.
Perfect, that defines it.
Interests or values.
Carry on.
That's all I needed, Paul.
Well, the question is-
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but the warrant that I have doesn't have this article in it, so I'm working off of the
Oh.
one that I have. So I'm looking at section 1, the first paragraph says, "The purpose of this bylaw is to protect the wetlands of the town of Sherborn by controlling activities deemed to have a significant effect upon wetland values,
Oh, there it is.
including but not limited
Okay.
to."
Okay,
They're both
we're
there.
done.
Yeah, so it's there.
Yeah, it's
We're
there.
done.
Thank you,
Okay.
sorry.
So is that the same one?
They said it's a non-issue. Okay.
I
So,
think Tom's
And,
assessment.
and you just need to
thank you, sir, thank you.
re-explain why we're pulling out all this agricultural section.
Well, can I move that we approve this article
Yes.
being on the warrant?
Absolutely. Done.
All right, and I want to commend
But agriculture,
the
It conflicts with
Conservation
state law.
Commission
And
and Grace
all-
Shepherd and the
Yes.
citizens with their citizen article, because I understand you all work collaboratively and have, is that true, Grace? That-
I would like to compliment Jim Murphy,
Yes,
who
I-
brought
Yes.
enormous skill and a calm rationality to it.
Yes, he was very
And he
good.
worked in conjunction with town council's excellent statements for cleaning up our bylaw. And everyone working together has created what I think is a much more clear and apparently legal bylaw.
Terrific.
Yes, this is great.
We're all in favor,
And
particularly,
which does not expand powers this year, which is an important point.
Well, thank you all for working on it together. That was tremendous. Best possible thing.
the lawyer on the board loves legal bylaws.
Okay.
All right, so that brings us to 31.
21.
The minimum maintenance of abandoned and severely neglected buildings. We had a presentation from,
21.
that's
27. Oh, got it, duh.
21.
Sorry about that.
Article 21.
Right.
We had a presentation from the proponents. We asked them, was this what town council had approved? We sent it to town council. Town council made some changes. I ran it by the proponents. The proponents say they're fine with what town council has done. So I move that we include this on the warrant.
You know, I like the idea of it, but here's where I've gotten to. And I've read it carefully, and you can see I've written all over the darn thing. I've discovered, thanks to some information from Barbara that references various Massachusetts laws and so forth, that the building inspector, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Health, all sorts of folks, there are plenty of state regulations that allow us to do, solve the problems that I think we're trying to solve, which was a learning curve for me. And when I read what we've got here, I find that there's so much of the wording used that is subject to interpretation. And I think it's a fairly significant thing here that we're trying to do that hasn't had a lot of vetting yet. So in my view, I don't know that this one's ready for prime time. I tried, I think it's a good effort, but, you know, define this. The farm buildings are still subject to at least blighted and being severely neglected. You know, what is informed in writing, by what fashion, what reason, you know, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things I could just blast this thing out of the water.
Well, could I suggest, in response, that our function here tonight is whether or not to put it on the warrant, not whether we support it or whether we would recommend to the town to adopt it. And this is on behalf of a town body, namely the Historic Commission. Just like we've accommodated the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board and everybody else, these are town boards. They are working hard. They've come up with something. Why take away their ability to continue to work on it and refine it and do a motion at town meeting? If we do not put this on the warrant, that means that's the end of the road for it right now. It's like sudden death, you know, in playoffs and football. We don't put it on, it's gone.
Yeah, I hear you, I hear you.
If it is under our control prior to the meeting and it still is not in such a form that you're comfortable with,
We can recommend not adoption.
we can put a bullet in it then. Because I have to say also that whilst I am in favor of the idea of having some control over what people do with their properties for public safety reasons, et cetera, I also am worried about the
Slippery slope
the
of that.
slippery slope. You heard me
Yes.
the other night.
Yeah.
I usually say these things quite consistently. However, if there are ways to get around some of those, I am perfectly willing to be convinced and to work on them and to make sure that that leeway is given. So leave it on the warrant. Let's
Okay.
let it
Fine.
work
I'm
and
fine with
go
that.
forward.
Yep, I'm fine
And
with
see
that.
how far we can get with answering those questions and give it every chance.
What's
we can.
important is, I mean, you're wonderful how you read everything very carefully and come up with all these questions. Those questions need to go to Barbara and to the Historic Commission.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna get asked at town meeting.
That's correct.
And there are improvements that could be made to anything. All of us are works in
Okay.
progress, and every article is a work in progress.
Agreed.
So if we put it on, it gives them an opportunity to continue to work, continue to refine it. And what happens at town meeting isn't really the article, it's the motion that's made at town meeting. And that's one that town council will be heavily involved at. So if it's going to be adopted, it may not be exactly this, there's opportunities for refinement.
Exactly, but the point is well taken, that if we don't support putting it on the warrant now, it has no chance.
I understand.
So my vote is that
Okay.
even though I want to see it change some, let's get it on the warrant so it has a chance to grow and become something that we can come together.
Fine, works for me.
I think you've won your argument, and if you say too much.
I'd be very circumspect.
You're fine.
Missed whatever you brought up, and so, you know, I'm chair of the historical commission, just send me an email, whatever, and.
That's what I will do.
Sure, thank you.
So
Very good.
can we vote on
Yep.
putting it on?
Yep, it's on.
It's on.
It's on.
Hooray,
It's on.
okay.
That's one of those LED switch votes. It's on.
All right, that brings us to 22, which is the,
Accepting money from a dozen.
Yeah,
this is
further
for
down.
the, this is at the request of the committee we have that's hired all those engineers and has got everything going.
Yeah. It's easy.
That's,
Any,
everybody's worked very hard on that. It's here.
any objection?
None.
Then 22 is the, comes from the Personnel Board. They want
That's
to
right, yeah.
make some changes to the Personnel Administration Plan. Again, it comes from a town committee. Feel some responsibility to support our town committees, so any objection?
Now, where am I? Did I miss something
That
here?
was 23, so we're at
Article
23,
23.
which is the FMLA leave.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. That's
The bottom. Yep.
our personnel board.
Article 24, again, is a request from the Personnel Board and is a request from the Police Department. This would solidify the appointment that we did for a lieutenant in the
So that's,
Police Department. We have an excellent lieutenant, and he's actually doing the job, so we ought to catch up with the paperwork to make it all proper.
yeah, you want to?
Yeah, I wonder if we could jump to 33 and then come back to what's in between,
Okay?
because the good stuff's in between. At least knock
Let's-
off 33 and on.
Uh,
Board of Assessors,
33.
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So then we come back to the
we just do
discussion.
this ministerial stuff, bam,
Yes.
bam, bam.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You wanna do that?
Yes, I'm just trying to find what pages, the pages aren't numbered.
There are no page numbers. Jeannie's final gift was not to number the pages. Wah!
Okay,
Okay.
I got it.
Article 33.
This is a request from the Board of Assessors.
Yep.
It should say it's a request from, it's Board of Selectmen on behalf of the Board of Selectmen on behalf of the Board of Assessors, if I could make that revision, because only we can put articles on, the assessors can't. But this is a pretty much standard thing that we have to do every
Yeah,
3 years, I
it's on.
believe, so no objection.
No
None.
objection.
Then
34,
34 is
same.
stabilization.
No objection.
No objection. 35.
This
The
is
OPEB stabilization.
OPEB, no
OPEB
objection.
funding
36.
Free cash.
is to apply free
Yep.
cash to set the tax rate.
37.
38, 39, 40 are all citizens,
Can't
Yes, so
say a thing
they
about
have to
them.
come
And
in
41.
as they're written.
And 41.
and that's the end of the page.
That's it. So those are all finished, and now we jump back to,
Those are all citizen articles, they have to go in as they are, so
Yeah.
there's no point talking about them.
now this starts us out, 25. And this is where,
Let me tell,
yeah, you go ahead with this one, because I wanna make sure that I've got the right paperwork over here. Is this the paperwork that comes sideways to this way?
Yeah, this one.
yes,
Right. So that comes sideways to this one, and this, is that?
no.
No,
Ah.
that's
What,
the s-
what I
full-blown.
have been suggesting to the board that there be,
A swaparoo.
no, not a swap, well, you all need to decide that. But that there be 2 articles for the,
TA
make
Act.
sure everybody knows what we're talking about. We're talking about our town administrator and giving him more authority. And as I have said before, the Board of Selectmen had at several occasions voted not to have DOR do its study and all of that because we thought the community wasn't ready for the recommendations that might flow from that. But a citizen article was brought to town meeting, I think it was 2 years ago, asking that the town go forward with governmental reform. That passed. DOR did a study, Collins did a study. And so Article 25 was the product of our asking town council to come up with an article that would implement the stronger town administrator based on the DOR study and the Collins study. And so I see it as sort of carrying out the will of the voters from that town meeting. And what I want the board to consider is that in addition to that article, that there be a second article, which is government reform that the Board of Selectmen would recommend be done. That second article would be a lesser included group of reforms. That is, the first article is basically all of these things that Collins wanted. The second article would be a more tailored and limited article that would address the priorities of the board. What needs to be done first, and leave to another day whether and how to address the other recommendations of the Collins report. And so, working with town council and with the advice and comments from a variety of sources, including, I showed it to the town administrator, and he had a comment that he made. I have a proposed alternate article. This article is
Sure, do we have one? Is this one,
That's
this
it.
one
Can you-
complete?
Do you have copies?
Okay, could you make some copies?
Right there? Yes.
There we go. Then I can keep one that I can look at too. It was always good to look at them. That's excellent. All right, where were we?
First, I want to apologize to the board that it wasn't until today that town council and I came up with this, and so I sent it to the board this afternoon.
That's quite all right. We are
Very
working-
much aware of the deadline that we
progress.
have to go forward. This, you'll see, is much reduced rather than the full range of reforms. This is narrower, and let me outline some of the ways that it's narrower. In the broader article, Article 25, we have the town administrator appointing the police chief, the fire chief, the town clerk, the town treasurer, the tax collector, and so on and so on. This focuses on the offices of town treasurer and tax collector, takes out the police chief, the fire chief, the town clerk, removes that. There's similar provisions that protect the incumbents.
Mm-hmm.
At 3A at the bottom, what we've done is sort of a modification. It says the town administrator shall be responsible for the initial screening of all applicants and recommend to the Board of Selectmen finalists for the position of fire chief, police chief, and community maintenance and development. So, again, instead of having the town administrator appoint them, which is Article 25, Article 26 would have him do all of the grunt work, if you will. Sorry, David. But you do all the paperwork and make sure that the laws are complied with, but still leaves the Board of Selectmen as the appointing authority.
Essentially, this is a much lighter version.
Yeah,
of the other
it's a Bud Light.
So I gather that the intention is to have the essentials here that are important to achieve, and the entire business that the management consultants recommend, side by side?
Yes, so there's like the omnibus one, let me use that word for it. It's sort of like the omnibus, Collins, So
This is what they said to do.
Right, so the citizens don't
Yeah.
feel like we've blocked them from doing whatever reform they want to do. Whatever they want to do, they can do a motion under Article 25.
So you don't think it would be wise to go with the one we think is the best one, most likely to succeed, which I think is probably the latter one, which I think is great that you've done this, Paul. It's
But
terrific.
in the same way, I mean, I'm trying to stay on a structural basis here so that we're not hashing out the deeds. I would tend to agree with you, they'll vote for something that, I mean, that is simpler and easier to understand. But if that becomes a problem later on, we can modify or
Well,
pull
it
the
just
larger
gets to
one.
the confusion. I mean, I'm back to being confused with all of these things in there, and
This
I gotta-
doesn't confuse me.
No, I know, this doesn't confuse me either, but at the same time, you gotta say, well, why are you putting that in there? It's under the Board of Selectmen, but then you're doing the light, and I guess the way it has to be, presented is, what you were saying, Paul, is we're presenting you what's recommended by the world at large, but using these different, studies and consultants and so forth. Doesn't necessarily mean that's the way we think it ought to go, and in fact, that's why we present this other version.
Which is what we
Which-
think
which
is
is-
the way it ought to go.
I guess that's
In the lighter
still
version,
not quite there, but
you'll see
yeah.
a lot of Peter Caruso.
No, I know that, and Peter Crusoe still has some questions on the
Oh,
lighter
okay.
version, as you can imagine, but
But
for
you'll see-
clarity, yes, I see that, yeah.
Every time you made a comment on the omnibus one,
Yes,
I took that to heart, and you'll see.
appreciate that, yeah.
I mean, like, one of the things you were concerned with was, shouldn't we specifically exempt the police chief and the fire chief from this? And if you look at 3B, it says,
Yes.
provided, however, the police chief shall continue to have and exercise all power and authority granted to him
No,
pursuant to
that's
the
good.
general laws, chapter.
In the same way, though, and I'm for this, but in the same way, though, that we looked at the house destruction piece and said, yeah, there's things in there that I can't wrap my head around today, but you wanna have the option to spend the next month playing with it and seeing what's going on, perhaps that's the same place to be with this, right? I mean, if you agree
With the
with,
light version is what you're saying.
or both.
Or
of them.
both, well,
What I'm saying is you could pull it, if it comes to the point where we are at loggerheads over whether or not we can support the both
okay, I guess,
pieces, but
yes, but think about this, or at least,
I don't wanna confuse
we,
anybody either.
no, and we haven't really had a lot of feedback with the community on
Well,
interaction.
now we've got
Well,
final
well,
versions.
Yeah, but, no, and that's fine. The point is that the feedback I've gotten from people directly is, you're crazy, that's never gonna fly, why even bother, okay? And so we're just persisting with that by having it here. And I don't know if that helps us or hurts us. I don't know if it makes us look helpful to the community or not, that's all.
Well, no, I agree,
Where-
and I think
And
that
I think
a
our
lot of the-
effort needs to go into this guy.
A lot of the confusion that led to some misinformation and some fearful responses, I think, was due to the fact that it is kind of hard to understand how this all fits together.
Yes,
This is far easier to
Yes.
understand.
yes.
The light version.
Yeah,
But on the other hand, advisory was one of the forces that led for the studies to be done. They might decide, hey, go for the 30-yard pass, why are we just going for a first down?
Right.
And I don't want to take that power away from them. They could do that under that article. But I think we, as a Board of Selectmen, I listen to people the same as
Sure
you
you
do.
do, yes, absolutely.
And
well, maybe there's no harm then in putting them both up and seeing what feedback we get.
part
I mean,
of
that's the honest
the art
arbiter of the deal.
Part of the art of good government is getting done what you can get done. And so, while our consultants are saying that Article 25 is what we should do, it may well be that would all go down to defeat because there's too much
There.
they're asking us to do all at once. Whereas the Bud Light version, I think is the kind of thing that could develop a pretty broad consensus and could get done. So if I can get into the end zone with a series of smaller passes,
Right.
that's fine.
Right.
But I think we owe it to those who told us, get this stuff done, to
So-
give them the option to throw it right into the end zone.
Yeah, so, I mean,
If you add it, you could put a bullet in it later.
okay, if that's our strategy, yeah, I think it's good for discussion purposes, if nothing else, is the way to
This
look
is-
at it, okay?
That's the whole point.
But again, I'd say we try to really fine tune, at least fine tune some of the things that I
Oh, I
have
agree.
issues with
I
on,
agree.
the selectmen's version as opposed to the light version.
The selectmen's
The-
version, indeed.
Because I think that's how you phrased it, you were gonna do, Paul, is try and come up with a selectmen's version. And
Right.
Here,
And this
this
is
is the working draft right now.
This is the working draft.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Where do you sit with that?
Well-
If we-
well, no, I
If we
said-
accept that this one is complicated, and the room is just filling up with hands, what do you wanna do here? do you wanna-
I still wanna cover the points I have on the light version, but if people wanna talk about the dilemma of having the both, I think that's
Well,
input
should we-
that might be valuable.
Okay, but
But-
my question was, before we do that, do you think that it would be illustrative to the discussion to clear up some of the issues
Yes.
that you have here,
Yes. Yes,
about your questions, before we open the floor?
yes. If
So that
people
if
would
you-
allow me to do that?
If we can allow,
do that?
if we can
I've been,
allow
I've been reading 27 of
our
these things.
erudite selectmen here, if we could have that discussion up here, it might obviate the necessity for some of the questions that are coming off the floor, and it certainly won't preclude any of them, so it might
That's
help
right,
out, so.
and I don't have a lot, okay?
Before you start, I agree with your premise. With my understanding of the discussion that took place last Tuesday, that a revamp of the Article 25 was one of the major elements, was going to be the removal of requesting that the power and duties of the town administrator be an element of a special piece of legislation from the state legislature.
No, it had to be.
Well, I understand that Section 2 does, but the powers and duties,
One of the things that I asked Barbara to do after last week's Monday's meeting, was to take out from the
Everything.
article anything that could be done by bylaw or done locally. And she went through it and assured me that she took everything out, and then I had some conversations, and there was like one sentence that said he was the chief procurement officer, which is also reflected in 30B, and she said, well, you don't need to say it both in the general laws and in here, so there's another piece, there's another sentence. So she was actively looking, and as we went through it, each of these, and she can speak for herself, but each of these things she felt had to be there, that this was the minimum that had to be there in order to accomplish these things. Barbara? Is that a fair summary?
Yes.
All right, so let's,
Okay, let me do my thing.
Let you do your thing.
And poor David's sitting over saying, I'm right here, they're talking about me, I'm right here. I'm gonna undo the.
oh, no, Peter.
Just, no, because this is where I'm hung up, all right? We have a line in here in 3A, fourth line down, talks about other employees who work for town boards and committees. Okay? And other employees who
yes.
work for town boards and committees. So my question is, regarding whether this applies or doesn't apply to the assessors, to the planning board, to the board of health, and to the library in this section. I'm a little confused on that, okay? So and that same confusion rolls over into B.
In what sense? Where in B are you? That-
Same thing, does that apply to these people? It just is, it's ambiguous to me. It suggests to me that it does apply to those people.
In specific.
Yes.
So.
And so the question is,
that-
because they're elected,
Were we given, the issue would be, I guess, and to talk about it on a principal basis, to whom does an employee who draws a check from the town report?
absolutely.
Okay? If there is an elected official, let's call them the sneaker maker, the elected sneaker maker, has 3 people in their office who do the sneaker making. The elected official is clearly exempt from any kind of reporting requirements, except those put upon them by the state concerning the terms of their election and fit
Right.
conduct of their
Right.
duties.
Right.
The employees, who are drawing a check from the taxpayer's pocket, right, in order to make the sneakers
No,
for the
I
town,
get- I
wait,
get-
from the town,
All right,
that's where the money comes from. at the end of the day.
Yep.
Right? Do they share some separation from the overall administration of the town on a human resources basis? The contention here is, no, they should not. That an individual who's elected to make the sneakers, I don't know, and Barbara, you can probably answer to me, is there an implicit power and authority given to an elected official to set salaries, manage human resources issues? Well, I'm asking. I'm just asking because I don't understand, right? This is for my edification. Or is it the case that the elected official is a special case and that everyone else who works for the town and draws a paycheck belongs under what we could put together as a single rubric for management of employees who are not under special contracts or part of collective bargaining units?
Okay, well, there's a few things in that question. First of all,
Is that kind
all,
of where we were?
all employees of the town, for example, unless they're under collective bargaining, subject to the personnel bylaws.
They're circled in purple
So-
there.
Right. So if you have an elected board right now, the elected board is going to be in charge of their budget, is going to be managing their department, subject to certain things, subject to town meeting appropriations, subject to personnel bylaws, subject to state laws, et cetera. By having a special act, the town can decide how it wants to manage appointments, removals, and management of various departments. You could appoint the town administrator king of the town, and he could manage every department, every employee, appoint, fire, do everything. You could give the town administrator no additional authority. So it's really that's sort of the beauty of a special act, is that it gives you the flexibility to say, this is how we want to manage our town. In many towns, you have a town administrator or a town manager who appoints employees for boards or officials who are elected. And those employees report to and are responsible to the town administrator or the town manager. So it's been done in many, many towns. You don't have to do it that way. You can leave it as, if you have an elected board of trustees of the library,
That's
then the
what this is
trustees
doing.
of the library will in fact continue to hire employees and manage them and so on. It's really up to what the town wants to do. So, for example, if it's important to the town that the library trustees continue to be independent and continue to function independently, then we can certainly put in here and say
Exempt them.
that
as
the
is
town administrator will
properly.
appoint all employees except
Right.
employees of, in the school department is usually exempted, and,
Yes,
you know,
which
we
we've
could say
done
that
here,
the, you know, the library trustees, or whoever you want. You could do the same with an appointed board. You
Right.
could say Conservation Commission can appoint their employees. It's really up to how far the town wants to go as far as centralizing authority in the town administrator.
Right.
So you know, as Paul said, you know, we had, you know, the Article 25, which goes pretty far in that direction. And then we have this new article, which is pulling back from that.
By exempting certain areas and.
Right,
But
exactly.
generally granting, what I was getting at is the overall idea here is to centralize more of
Right,
the human resources authority with the TA in terms of who's getting paid and controlling budgets.
right.
And having a central look at how we pay our people and spend our taxpayers' money on employees.
Right.
Okay, good,
Right.
thank you. That's
And-
exactly, Peter,
and
why I
to
wanted to
answer
say this.
I'm sorry, to answer the specific question with respect to the library trustees, the intent of this is, as I understand, is that library trustees would be exempt, I guess is what the word that we're using. If that's not clear, I will make sure I go back in 3A and I will make it clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Because
not,
that was asked for.
We had decided to exempt, Barbara and I in our conversations, the school committee, the board of library trustees, the town clerk, the chief of police, the fire chief, and
Yeah.
for
and
those
again,
individuals. But I think you've answered the question, is that this does apply to the employees that fall under the assessors, the planning
Yes.
board, the board of health.
Yes.
And right now, as I read it, the library, and I could almost argue, reading 3A, school committee.
Yeah,
Schools, right?
I would say that it does not apply to schools.
Because they're not town, they don't work for town boards and committees.
Right,
Okay,
right.
so
But-
thereby, they, you
I'm
don't,
sorry.
they're just, it does not apply to them.
They're exempted.
Right, so
Okay.
as I said, what I'll do, and I apologize, we've been trying
On
to
the
get this
library, yeah,
together
I
for tonight.
understand.
We
yeah.
will make sure that we call that out
That
specifically.
list is clear.
Okay, but you've answered my question, and so it does apply to the
Yes,
people who are personnel action plan falling under elected bodies
yes,
and elected officials,
Well,
basically.
she's gonna put the list of exempt
yes.
bodies.
I'll put the list.
Okay, okay,
Make sure, I mean, we have it in like 3 different places.
yeah.
He's just
I'll put
asking
it
to be put in
everywhere.
a 4th
Yes.
place. Put it
Yes.
everywhere.
No, I understand, you want to be clear, and I agree.
That's right.
Let's be
Yeah.
clear.
Okay. I still don't like the term under the policy direction. I don't like the word policy there. I think that limits us. No offense to David by any means, but we do have, and this thing talks about how our policies and procedures do say we use policy direction here or policy.
All right,
But
so
I'd
you'd- so
rather,
you'd
I like
strike-
that word policy
strike
removed,
policy.
okay?
Fair enough.
I'd like to understand and see what a chief fiscal officer is by definition and their duties and so
Sure.
forth.
There is no definition.
Okay.
Okay, it's whatever duties you want to give him. But I think tonight was a good example. When you were asking
Yes.
questions of the town accountant, the chairman of the advisory committee, when you have a chief fiscal officer, the town accountant, the treasurer, the tax collector, the advisory committee, all of those now come together, hopefully, in one.
And that person has those
Right,
answers,
and
yes.
And they all
Exactly.
put the town, and he
All right.
sort of
Right.
supervises the whole thing, and he would be
Yep.
sitting here.
Yep.
Or sitting there answering,
Yep.
those types of
Yep.
questions.
Okay, good. I would,
And also, I'm sorry, one other important thing is helping to prepare the budget. The budget would be under the.
understood.
That's critical.
That's
That's
a
key.
huge part of
That
being the
is a
chief
critical
financial.
part of that.
Yep.
That's
Thank-
also why there are 2 of these other
I understand.
articles going away.
Yeah. In C, the halfway through, all warrants for payment, where it says shall be forwarded to the members of the Board of Selectmen at the same time the warrants are forwarded to the town administrator. That would mean there'd be 2 versions of that pile of paper. So I'm suggesting that we just change the wording, all warrants for payment shall be made available to the members of the Board of Selectmen.
That's fine.
That's
Okay,
fine.
You cool with that?
No objection.
There's a typo in D, 3rd line up, where we talk
Before
about
you- You leave C, I hope you
Oh, yeah.
understand that was done, C was done at your request.
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
So
no, no,
that you
no.
can go through the stuff and
Yeah.
if you have an objection,
Yeah.
that will stop
Yeah,
it.
I just don't wanna make work that's
More, right.
unnecessary. I
But
just
we
wanna-
want the town administrator to be able to sign warrants and get people paid. on
Absolutely
a-
right.
Oh, question.
basis.
Chief fiscal
I just
officer.
want the right to occasionally come in and flip through the papers and
All right,
ask questions, because I'll run out of things
'cause
to
you
ask
like that
questions about.
stuff, man.
All right, so I had a typo down the bottom of D, 3rd line up,
Yeah, I see that,
non-voting
yep.
member, yeah.
No, I'm
In-
voting.
In E at the end,
Yep.
I would argue for, just at the very last line where we talk about consistent with best practices and conform with Massachusetts law, that we change that to read consistent with best practices, conform with Massachusetts law, and be in the best interests of Sherborn taxpayers. Maybe that's too mom and apple pie, but it gives us a little more flexibility than I think this currently says.
Be in the best interest of,
You
I mean,
know,
you couldn't disagree. I mean, how can you say no to that? But
right.
what does it mean?
Well, I don't know what best practices are in negotiating a labor contract in terms of the end result, but I want the end result to be in the best interests of the taxpayers, you see, that's why I suggest.
I have no
I
objection
have no
unless,
objection.
no objection at all. Barbara, is there any legal objection to loose language there? Be in the best interest of the, by whose, by,
If
who
you say
determines
that
what-
you can say, that's stupid, that gets you nothing, and that's fine.
I would never say that.
But you would say that
Well,
really gets you
It doesn't matter
nothing.
if it gets us nothing, as long as it doesn't cost us anything, it's fine.
My understanding of this last sentence was simply that the town administrator, as part of the bargaining team, would be sort of the, making sure that things are being done according to best practices, according to Massachusetts law, in conjunction with your labor council. That's part of his role, in addition to the sort of, typical contract negotiations and back and forth. So I'm not sure if what you're saying goes with those 2 concepts or not. I guess it's the only
Seeing
reason.
him as a
I'm
much more
hesitating.
third party sort of arbiter of best practice,
I-
as opposed to a partisan for,
Peter, are you limiting it to just the taxpayer? If you want a sentence like that, you should encompass all of Sherborn, not just the taxpayer.
Well, Kitty, yes, I was limiting it to just the taxpayer, but, yeah, I mean, I thought about that. I think your point's well taken. You could say that, so it's for everybody.
no
but-
objection to some language like that that would make you happy.
No, it really, you know, I guess what I'm looking for is making sure that the town administrator and working on, you know, contract negotiations, labor negotiations, really grinding away on behalf of the taxpayers. That's really what I'm trying to achieve.
I think we could
you
give him credit for being full,
I
fair
know,
faith
I
and credit as
know,
a
so it really gets us
workmanlike
nothing,
dude
is
who would
what
do that.
you're scratching your head over there.
I don't have a problem with it, because I read the words best interest of the taxpayers as not necessarily, let's be
Grinding away.
cheap.
Yeah, right,
And
I
have
know.
everybody leave the town's employ and have nobody working here.
Right, right.
So best interest of the town as opposed to the,
That's fine, yeah, that's fine. It's a subtlety, but it's fine.
All right,
Kitty wants it, I.
so could we agree then? Could we agree then?
Are
To,
those all Peter's comments?
That's it, yeah, no, I mean,
could we agree then to,
I would say
I'd
I'd be
adopt
curious
that
what,
one.
yeah, but I'd be curious if we had a little feedback, you see?
sure. Feedback. Sir, your hand was up like a rocket. George was up for a while.
Not for very long. Don't go. Oh, okay.
Shall I take somebody else for a moment?
It's not that I don't want to listen to you.
That's okay. No, my concern is, perhaps can be addressed this way. Most of the people that are exempt are employees of a board that was elected. That's-
correct, yes.
The one big omission here is the Board of Assessors.
I mentioned it.
You're correct.
Is that intended, or is that an oversight?
You know, I.
That's not your question.
Right.
That's their question.
It's up to them.
Yeah.
So that was what I was asking. Are those employees of the elected boards not exempt? They're covered by this. They're not exempt. And that would be just as you say, be
Well,
assessors,
you
planning,
exempt-
board of health.
Yes.
Yeah, they're subject to a higher fire by the TA as
By the
is
TA.
currently drafted.
As contrasted with the board that they actually work for.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Even though the board's not responsible to the TA.
Correct. Because the board's elected, right?
Right.
So the board's not responsible, they're
There's a difference
responsible to the vote.
between making the employees of that elected board subject to the personnel rules, okay, as contrasted with hiring and firing that employee. It seems to me that you already have those employees subject to personnel laws.
Correct.
Bylaws. So that's not an issue. What is an issue is that they can be hired and fired only at the present time by the elected board. And you want to take that away from the elected board.
I don't know what I want, but I
But
want to know
this-
what you
that's what
think.
this
Yes,
would be.
that's what this is.
That's what this would do,
Okay.
yes.
And I would ask you to consider exempting the hire and fire part from the employees who work for an elected board. That would be, as I understand it.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
Library, board of health, planning board, assessors.
And you've done all of them but a couple. And I don't see the rationale for not doing a couple you left out. That it leaves out, I shouldn't say.
It would be good to have that rationale.
Well, I think there's more thinking to be done about it, but I think that's a
Yeah.
good
So I
question.
can give you that, I mean, I'll make that suggestion. And if it isn't a significant cost to the town, I would love to sit down and talk to the town council about the rationale behind some of these things, and not take up your time. She's not gonna make any decision, but maybe I can raise some issues that she might
Well,
address.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, just very briefly on the elected boards, I think the other way to look at it is, which ones are we exempting? The ones we're exempting essentially are the school committee and the Board of Library Trustees.
Yeah.
Now, the school committee, as I've mentioned, is almost always exempt. I think,
Mm.
right, exactly. And I can tell you, having worked on charters and special acts for a number of other towns, the Board of Library Trustees is also almost always exempt. Part of the reason for that is because the Board of Library Trustees in many towns was often created under a special act many years ago and has trustee funds that they're responsible for.
Exactly.
So those are the reasons they are in there. So essentially what we did was we put in those two boards only and nobody else. And I'm not saying you can do it any way you want, but that is the rationale.
Right.
My rationale for asking you to put them under the same exemption is that if you've got an elected board that is required by terms of being elected, carrying out its town function, and you take away the ability to hire and remove the employees that are supposed to execute that function, you've essentially stripped them of any ability to carry out the function to which they were elected. Right. And I think that you ought to seriously consider whether the town will accept that. To go back to Paul's position, I think that you have to be better served from the acceptability point of view of exempting the employees who work for people who are elected. Now, you notice I didn't say anything about you
Appointed
removing them
groups
from
and so-
being elected.
Right.
Because once you remove them, they come under the Board of Selectmen, and then they would no longer be exempt, as
Yeah.
I understand it.
Understood.
That true?
Well, again, it depends on how you write them.
Well,
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
of course, yes.
Exactly. Well, all right, let me take a couple of others as well,
Okay,
because
go
I
ahead.
know there were, Rick, you had your hand up earlier?
Yeah, specific to Article 25 as it's written. Both you, Tom, and Paul have commented that this is the Collins report version.
This, the one that's in the big,
Correct.
the
Correct.
big full thing here, yes.
So the question I have, and obviously it's specific to my role and to the fire chief's role, is I've reviewed this document front to back, and it makes no mention of removing strong chief from the police department or the fire department. So I'm
This is-
confused.
Yeah,
Okay?
this is what I advocated for the other day, that there is no language that should be in there concerning removal or hiring of strong chiefs, either of the Red House or the Blue House.
Okay, I understand that, but what's been said on camera to the general public is that this is the Collins report version. And if I understand this correctly, and Barbara, maybe you can shine some light on this question. If the town were to vote Article 25 through, would that remove my power to basically run the operations of the police department? And would that remove strong chief from the fire department?
No, it would not remove your authority from the department. I think the only thing that would be changed if Article 25 were adopted is under the strong fire chief law, you have the power to appoint firefighters and officers under your command. And the way Article 25 is written, all employees are appointed or would be appointed by the town administrator. So I think that's the only difference. And again, the reason that we put additional language into the second version is because the concern that was raised, and to try to make it clear that we're not going to take any authority away.
Right.
And I would have no problem putting that same language in Article 25, because I don't think
I
there
would
was
insist
any-
on it. In
And
fact-
just to be clear, and then again, the only issue would be the appointment of the firefighters, and again, if the board doesn't intend to change that, we can change that easily.
And
Put
no,
it back.
no slam on you, David, over there.
It is,
None
it
taken.
is,
Process.
let me say frankly, both to you guys as well, I've said in absolutely no uncertain terms, absolutely clearly, that because of the issue of the uncertainty that both of you felt, and that a lot of other people in the public were willing to talk about and make an issue, that I would remove any language whatsoever that said anything except what comes out of the Mass General Law Strong Chief Statute from anything that we put forward. It's just not worth it. We don't gain anything. I'm sure that Mr. Williams has not been waiting all these years so that he can fire some fire chiefs and hire some police chiefs. That the entire issue here has been spun up into such a giant juggernaut of fearfulness that I would say to you and ask the board right now to agree with me that no such language of any description should be included in either one of these things that would give either of you on your worst confused day the thought that you would be in danger of losing all of the power that you have under Mass Strong Chief law.
That makes sense to me, yeah.
I mean, I just want to I want to simplify this. One of the reasons I'm for this is this simplifies everything. And if we can just drop language that people are using to find confusion or to be made unsafe, then let's remove it immediately. I don't think I gain much. I don't think the town gains much. There's no point in it. So it's gone, as far as I'm
It
concerned.
was not the intent of Article 25 to change the strong chief, either the strong chiefs. What it did also was, though, make the appointing authority of the town administrator with the approval of the Board of Selectmen. That was a recommendation to strengthen the town administrator, but at the end of the day, the Board of Selectmen would approve it. So that was the substantive change that was in Article 25. It's, in the light version, he does the advertising and the procurement and human relations stuff and make sure that we don't violate the anti-discrimination laws and all that stuff. And he comes up with the candidates and does all the homework. But we're retaining appointing authority, so that's the difference between 25 and 26.
Mr. Chairman?
Ma'am.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear on this. So what I'm going to do on Article 25 is I'm going to make it clear, I'm going to put the same language that's in the so-called light version in Article 25,
Yes.
that in no way we're affecting the chief, strong
In
chief.
no way.
Now, as far as the appointing authority, as Mr. Dorenzis has just pointed out, although we won't affect the fire chief's authority to appoint, you do want to stay with the language that changes the appointing authority of the police and the fire chief to the town administrator with the approval of the Board of Selectmen.
First, I would say that I think it's a semantic difference, because the power lies with the Board of Selectmen. The TA won't be able to do anything without us saying yes or no. However, I would put that back to my guys and say, does it make you uncomfortable that he would even have a role in coming to us with that? Because I want to give you guys exactly what I promised, which is no ambiguity.
Wait a second, I think again, Article 25 is supposed to be the consultant's recommendation that the human relations function and the hiring function should be professionalized. That's really the recommendation. And that's what we're trying to do with Article 25. Article 26 is the selectmen's version. And I agree, and it's in the selectmen's version, that there's no change in the appointing authority there. But I think we should not take away from advisory and from the citizens of the town who fought for this whole issue of government reform to have the option of going to this model of a strong town administrator. And that model of doing the appointment with the approval of the Board of Selectmen is pretty much standard. Isn't that what they do in Framingham?
Well, yeah, no, but I think, but
It's kind of a standard
hold on a
model.
second. Both Neil and Rick just said, yeah, as long as it's with the approval of the Board of Selectmen as the final appointing authorities, then there's no problem here.
And that's how they.
Okay, so we can just let that go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you guys are happy, and we don't need to explain anymore?
Okay,
Because
great.
we'll lose the
Okay,
case
yeah,
we
all right.
just won?
Okay, all right, sorry.
Okay, so why don't we do this then? I have just piles of other people. You were right there, I'm sorry. Mark, you're next, and then Mike.
I'm next?
You are
Okay.
up.
All right, I'm Sheila Breslin with the Council on Aging, and if I'm understanding this all correctly, the Council on Aging Board, which has, since its inception, hired the director and then the other employees underneath them with the director's help. So we would be losing our authority to hire the director, and then it would now fall under the town administrator?
Right,
Am
but
I understanding
let me
this
make
correctly?
one thing clear here also, that I think that it's important to understand. The authority, yes, but not the authority to recommend, to vet, to bring, to interview, to bring to the people that you would like to have involved in this job.
But that's
Because
not-
he signs the piece of paper that says you're hired or you're fired, doesn't stop you from bringing the best people, as you would right now. Go find them, interview them, propose to hire them, and simply
Don't
have.
the selectmen now do such appointments, or?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be any different. Wouldn't be any different.
In our bylaws, though, it says the council may appoint such clerks and other employees as it requires. So,
Which bylaw is that?
this is the Council on Aging bylaws, the Sherborn Council on Aging bylaws.
Yeah, but I think state law makes the Board of
State law
Selectmen
says
the
the same
ultimate,
thing.
Same
State
thing.
law says the same thing.
same thing
Yeah.
as the bylaw.
Exact same thing. And the state law was accepted in 1974.
All right, but the light version says that these hirings will be done with the involvement of the boards and committees.
Correct.
In other words, the key part of this recommendation is, we don't want all these different hiring decisions to be made decentralized, because it's now a very highly regulated area. And the hiring and firing of people is the one place where there's huge liability for the taxpayers. Because if you make a
Yeah,
mistake
we've discovered
there, you get sued and you violated civil rights, you've discriminated, you've done all these terrible things. And so part of modernizing the structure is to have a professional who knows how to do it. And what we put in here was that in implementing the process, he does the administrative part and he consults with the board on the candidate. Do you know where that is in here? Can you
It's
take
in,
it from
it's
here?
in 3A in the second version. The town administrator shall consider the recommendations of committees and boards when making any appointments within their respective areas.
And so that's what I
So
was
the
trying to get
idea
at,
is
you were
you-
involved.
Okay.
You come up with a candidate, but, you know, I know that you would never do this, but if you decide to use discriminatory basis, that you hate somebody from a certain racial group and you're never gonna hire them and everything else, we need to protect the taxpayers. And we need somebody to tell you, you can't do that. Again, not that you would do that, but it happens all the time across the state. And so, the point of these consultants, what they're telling us is that the human relations function is a serious business. And we've hired a guy who's got a background in human relations, who was the human relations officer in Framingham. That's one of his portfolios,
Joanna City.
whatever. So he knows what he's doing.
Okay,
I'm
well-
not questioning that. I mean, I guess in the revised version, yes, it does say that. But in the original version, it does not say that.
Right.
Right, the
Well, this is-
original version, again, Collins didn't say that. We felt
It was
that
important.
instead of him just going off and hiring people in an abstract, he should be working with you. So
All right,
we
well, let's-
put that in the light version to lock the two of you together, so it's a partnership, as opposed to the pure recommendations from the consultants.
Let's accept this one. I think that you, in general, we've answered as best we can. Mark, you were up next.
Two things. Just to sort of tag onto this, it's just a suggestion, it might make it more palatable if the hiring and firing was subject to the approval of the board that's involved. That's just a suggestion, you can do with what you like.
Sure.
Are you really going to put two of these things on the warrant? Or are you gonna make up your mind?
If you're asking me as to
One-
which way I'm
Yeah, put
leaning
one on-
now.
put one on the warrant.
I hope
mean, this
not.
is more in the interest of just process.
I would hope that we would come to the
I would strongly
conclusion.
recommend
One.
that you get to one.
Yeah.
Because if you have two, you're gonna be splitting votes, people aren't gonna understand what's going on.
Well, I think that will poison the well. And even the presence of the two creates a misunderstanding of what's in the one, if you will. I didn't mean to sound like something off the Matrix, but that's pretty much what I mean, right? That if there's only one spoon to bend, I think we'll all do better. So I appreciate that. Mr. Lesser, you were also patient. I see you, Frank, as well. But it's also getting late, folks.
Michael Lesser, 54 Forestry Conservation Commission. I guess Mark brought up part of what I was interested in is that issue of, we have actually, as the commission, has hired its agent. And I understand the issue of keeping it as a more formalized process, but I like Mark's idea where there is this, not only that it's more formal, that it's an agreed upon hiring decision, that the board itself, our commission, would also have to approve that, so that it's not solely even though we can base the recommendations, given the wording now, it would be nice if we both have to agree, so that there isn't this possibility of getting a difference between what the town administrator wanted and what the commission wanted, that you basically have to find some convergence.
Understood.
So that more formally putting that in there would feel a little more comfortable. So that's one suggestion, and my other question is, I would like to know while I mostly welcome the town administrator's participation in our commission, I wanted to know, what does it mean to be an ex officio member? Just so I understand what that is, and whether there's ever been an issue, because there could be a conflict of interest when there's a town project that comes in front of the commission, and I assume that that's a standard thing where they would excuse themselves or something like that.
Let me try answering the policy part and let the lawyer handle the lawyer part. It's hard for me to take off my lawyer hat, but I'll defer the lawyer part to her. The issue was the recommendation that the town administrator manage the town properties. Again, the logical concept is that property management needs to be done professionally. And the Conservation Commission owns a lot of land.
I wasn't questioning the management part, but go on.
That's what this is about. So the issue was, do we transfer to the town administrator management responsibility for all conservation land and all cemetery land and all land and all buildings and everything else, which is where we're supposed to go and where Article 25 would take us? Or do we not do that? To try and transfer all that management seemed like too big a step. But what we wanted to do is to have the town administrator have a real role in coordinating management of all public processes. So we came up with language that would say the town administrator will be an ex officio. That means by virtue of his position, whoever is the town administrator, he is automatically, by virtue of that office, a non-voting member of, and then we put in several organizations that have town assets that need to be managed, including the Conservation Commission. And then it goes on to say, for the purposes of coordinating efficient and effective care of the town assets. No.
Or does it
No.
change anything, any of that kind, what
No.
practical implication is there for any of it?
He gets a copy of the minutes.
So or do we just have to, every single thing we send out to every commissioner, when we send out he's always CC'd on everything?
What we are trying to
I just want to understand the
do,
practicality of it.
what we are trying to do in the light version is to centralize management.
I have no problem with that.
And we would ask, we as a Board of Selectmen would ask the Conservation Commission to defer to the town administrator on management issues. If everybody has fields and they want to mow all the fields, well, you could be out there trying to figure out how you're going to take care of your field. And the town forest could be figuring out what they're going to do with their field. And the schools could be figuring out what they're going to do with their field. And the cemetery could figure out what they're going to be doing with their field. And the town hall could be trying to figure out what they're going to do with their field. We want somebody who knows what they're doing and who's going to be responsible for it. And that's why we want him to be involved, not to take those powers or duties away from you. That's the difference between the light version and the heavy version. But to have him there, quote, for the purpose of coordinating efficient and effective care of those
I
assets.
applaud all of that, I just didn't know what it actually means for somebody to be an ex officio member in terms of the quorum, or he's just on every single correspondence, which is fine, I don't mind doing that, and it would be fine if he came. I was just wanted to know what the nitty-gritty was, but, and it doesn't have to be addressed all tonight, maybe it's someplace else where I can find out.
I was gonna say, I think if to answer more, I would encourage people to communicate more about this and find out what the upshot is there and take it. Because again, what we're trying to do here is decide what to do with the thing as a whole piece. as opposed to sewing
And
the
more
soul
importantly,
back
it's
on.
an issue of the hire issue, because we've been doing the hiring, whether we do it cooperative, do it together, or we both do it.
Yeah, there's gotta be some kind of wording that can come into play that allows for that, but still, to the extent there's a battle, that maybe we're the referees at the end of the
You're the
day or
referees at the
something,
end.
you know,
That's no
I don't
problem,
know.
which you
But
always are,
some
but-
consultation
Yeah,
for
there was
their
some-
approval not to
the-
be unreasonably withheld and,
Exactly.
you know,
Did you let Barbara
mediated.
speak and Dave speak? Barbara, on the meaning of ex
Yeah,
officio?
the only thing I would add on the ex officio, as it was already said, it means by virtue of office, so, it essentially means, and sometimes you'll see the phrase that, you know, he'll have a right to speak on all issues but not have a vote. So in other words, he can go to every meeting, he can sit there, he can, like any other member of the commission, can put up his hand and say, I'd like to chime in. I have a feeling he probably won't go to every meeting of your commission, but when there's something there that he's interested in, and I don't mean to pick on your commission, but I mean, he's not there for the, you know, somebody who comes in for an order of conditions, he's there, as Paul said, more on the management issues. So basically, by being an ex officio member, it means he has the right to be there, to sit at the table, to have a say, but doesn't have a vote. I would hope, of course, that your commission, even if he wasn't officially an ex officio member, would allow him to speak at any meeting. But it just gives him sort of a higher level of involvement and make sure that he's in the loop on everything. So it doesn't affect your quorum, it doesn't affect your voting, anything like that.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, I believe that you were tapped.
I was just gonna address the member piece too, that sometimes I've seen the language says, the town administrator shall serve in an ex officio capacity serving the following boards or something. It doesn't necessarily have to be stated as a member of the board.
Yeah.
Okay. Karen, Frank has been patient in the back, and then I can do you, and then maybe we can bring that back up to the table so that we can gain some traction on 8:45. Frank?
I think it's clear from Monday's meeting and today's meeting that the meaning of this is not really clear even to the board, or the final wording is not really clear to the board in both of these articles. And we're talking here about not just a bylaw, which we could change, we're talking about a state law, which, once we are into, will be rather unwieldy to adjust. And usually if you have something that's all-encompassing like this, you would have something like a committee from the town to look at the reorganization of it. We really didn't do that at all. It has some outside studies, but I mean, we hear Collins' report, but, you know, we've been managing our affairs for over 300 years, and we listen to other people. We usually decide here among ourselves. We don't just take what someone says and plug it in. And it really hasn't been done here by any wider group as far as the discussion of all these changes.
Well, I appreciate your point of view. I hear you. Who was next? Karen, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just a point of clarification on F in terms of the TA being the chief procurement officer to be responsible for purchasing all supplies, materials, et cetera, for all departments. My concern is I purchase on an ongoing basis a number of things like coffee and pizza and meals for the seniors, and I don't want to bog him down with, you know, things that don't make a lot of financial means to his budget, my budget, and the town's budget.
I'm
So I was hoping
sure.
you could put in, like, if you felt it necessary, you know, under $1,000 or something like that, that would give me the flexibility to
I would
maintain.
think,
I think under state law 30B, you can delegate some functions.
Basically, as soon as you get hit $5,000 for those
And I'm fine.
commodities.
That's what's in place now.
Okay.
yeah, I
But-
think
but
that's reasonable. I don't think it would be that.
The other thing is, you know,
Right.
it's fine that you're buying coffee, but let's say that you're buying coffee and everybody else in town hall is buying coffee, and then everybody else who is a town employee is buying coffee, and it turns out maybe we're spending $5,000-10,000 in coffee. Maybe he can get a volume discount and get everybody coffee at half the price because we're buying so much coffee. If you don't have somebody who at least has the authority to look at this, to see if there are ways that we can cut money, then you have no means to ever centralize this stuff. But that's all 30B, that's a different statute, and all this does here In fact, I thought you were gonna take that sentence out because you said it was redundant of 30B, we didn't need to have it in there.
Yeah, I think that is one sentence we can take out because that's something that can be put in the town bylaws. It doesn't have to be in the special act. So we can take it out and put in the bylaws, and then it can be changed more easily. So that's something we could take out. I thought I had, but again, I apologize. There's been a couple of different versions, and sometimes things have, I thought I had taken out one version, I didn't take out another version.
You told me you'd taken it out, and I see it here.
No, you're right, I did, but I think that was a different version. Sorry.
Yes, but again, state law, we have to have a chief procurement officer. We designate him, it's in his contract, it's in his
Right,
job
right.
description.
It doesn't have to be in here.
It's all over the place, so it doesn't need to be here.
I've already crossed it out in my version.
So you pull that whole thing or just a line?
Just that line.
Just that line, the
The
other,
second part of it we do need.
Okay.
Yeah, it's minor.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I've got two more here. I see Kitty, and then a short one from George, and then we can bring it back up here and make some progress.
Okay, I'm gonna make myself a target.
Join the
If-
club.
Yeah, really.
No,
We got an extra seat up here for you if you want.
No, I think the lighter version is the better version.
Yeah.
But at town meetings, could someone stand up and ask that section 2 be deleted in its entirety and then voted on, vote the rest of it?
I mean, are you asking that as a procedural question?
Yes.
Could someone do that?
Yeah, could someone do that?
Could someone make a motion to amend the article?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, and then it would be up to the moderator to,
Okay.
make sure it's
that's all
within
I'm
the
asking.
scope, but just, the only
Because
thing.
that would not affect the rest of the body of the meat of the
Well,
article.
we want to go through and make sure.
Yeah.
But, yes, of course you can make an amendment.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
no more hands up, so, oh, George.
George said he had a quick one.
Yeah, the quick one is, would you explain to the absent member of the board what I asked for, or do you want me to do it?
You should go for it. Go ahead.
I noticed that you have taken
The
out.
absent member, yes. I got it, sorry.
You got it? You
I was
wanna do
reaching
it?
back.
You wanna
can-
do it?
No,
Go ahead.
you can carry on,
Okay. The short version, and I compliment you on the short version. You have kept the employees of elected boards under the jurisdiction of the town administrator, both the hiring and the firing. And
I thought we
you exempted
Yeah,
the
we
board of
did.
trustees, the
We did.
library, but you did not put in the other elected boards, such as the planning
Assessors.
board, the board of assessors, et cetera.
Well, hang with, let him.
Yeah, it seems to me that if you've got a board that's elected to carry out a function, it should have the ability to retain employees that it thinks will carry out that function. And if you strip them of that, then they're gonna be less effective in carrying out the function they were elected to.
Could I bring to you, because I didn't get a chance, we did talk in circles a little bit later on about that very same issue.
Yes.
That engaged the idea that there could be more mechanics around the decision to fire from outside the board. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that we want to remove the power from the TA, because at the end of the day, there is a chain of command and there has to be an absolute power somewhere. But could there be language that says that under these certain circumstances, these must be considered decisions or agreed upon in some way?
Well, I
Or
can give you language, but I don't wanna.
right, no, but the point is that hearing what you're saying, there isn't any real dissonance between the intention of centralizing and controlling and measuring hiring and firing and the effect on the town, and the ability of boards to actually intervene in that process, make good recommendations, ensure that a wise decision is being made for the delivery of service for that particular board or the execution of their jobs. They know their jobs. It may well be that Mr. Williams does know everything, but it also may well be that we have an assessor who knows a few more things about assessing that might say, no, this is the right guy. But to assume that there would be no mechanism in there at all to allow that good decision to be made on a local basis is not the intention of this at all. And that's why I wanted to respond one last thing to Frank as a throw out there. I disagree with you that we don't understand this language. It's very clear that the intention of this short form act is to centralize the powers that are now spread across 100 different places. There's good reasons for doing it, which we've all
There's many
discussed.
wording differences suggested, so it's not a set piece at this point in time. It's still a work in progress.
Well, give us a moment.
Yeah, I was gonna say, give us a moment. We got this, in terms of understanding the concept, the implementation, its scope.
Can I just fix one thing you just said?
Sure.
It's not about concentrating power. It's about concentrating administration. It is
Oh, yeah.
leaving the power where it is. The planning board's still gonna do whatever it does. The council on aging is still gonna do whatever it does. What we're talking about is the paperwork, the administration, the professionalization of the compliance with the laws by involving a hired professional. We're trying to make these decisions shared so that we don't violate the law. That's really what, but in terms of, should a subdivision be approved? Should the schools gonna do whatever they're gonna do? All the boards are gonna make the policy decisions. They're all gonna make the substantive decisions. They're gonna have all of the same powers that
But
they've
they'll have-
always had.
They'll have
It's-
better
so it's
administrative
not-
support.
It's gonna have better administrative support. That's what it
Maybe we
is.
could get there. Now, let me suggest the following thing.
Mr. Chairman,
Ma'am.
just to close the loop on that, my understanding is that I'm going to be amending section 3A and putting in the list. And I'm gonna take the same list that's in Article 25.
Yes, we had
And
decided
Article
that
25
before.
has school committee, planning board,